The full-time Mage the Extreme Lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Team Competition. Thanks, handsome young master, for the tip. Thanks to Zinchen for the tip. Thanks to Lin Xian'an for the tip of 1,500 book coins. Thanks to Yu Zhang Zahel for the tip of 588 book coins. Seeing Zhao Manan's expression of "I want to drink, I have a good alcohol tolerance," if he didn't know that this guy was a scumbag, he would have almost believed it. "Are you sure you want to drink?" Zhao Manan's alcohol tolerance was indeed not high, but looking at Tang Mao's questioning expression, he thought to himself, "I have to regain some sense of superiority in some aspects." In his opinion, a strong man like Tang Mao must have a scumbag alcohol tolerance. He immediately nodded and said, "I'm sure." Tang Mao had no choice but to agree. After all, he felt that it was necessary to let Zhao Manan understand what it meant to say "I won't fall if King Dao doesn't fall, and I won't float if snowflakes don't float." In his previous life, he drank 2.5 catis of white wine and beer at will, and that was not just talk. The two of them came to a hotel with their own thoughts, ordered a table of dishes, and asked for 10 boxes of wine. The momentum was indeed quite full. Zhao Manan fell asleep before the 3rd round of wine and the 5th round of dishes. Looking at Zhao Manan, who had already fallen asleep, Tang Mao smiled and said to himself, "Damn it, scumbag." After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Tang Mao dragged Zhao Manan, who looked like a dead dog, back to the apartment of the Imperial Capital Academy. Not to mention, the air in the Imperial Capital is worse than that in the Magic City. At night, no matter where you are in the pitch black winter, you can't even see the complete starry sky. Even the pitch black night is not very clear, and there will always be a layer of yellow haze, which is called light pollution. When they returned to the apartment, everyone else had already gone to bed. Tang Mao threw Zhao Manan on the sofa and went back to his room. After all, he had done his best by not throwing him on the street. In the morning, other schools competed with the Imperial Capital Academy, and in the afternoon, it was the Pearl Academy and the Imperial Capital Academy. This competition was naturally the highlight. If the fighting hall was not completely open, the fighting hall would definitely be full of people. After all, the open and covered struggles between the two universities, Mingzhou and Idu, have been going on for more than a year or two. The two megacities have some regional confrontations in China. For a place like a university where a group of competitive young people gather together, fighting is inevitable. In previous years, Dida University and Mingzhou University were drawn to other universities, and it was normal and a bit monotonous that they won. This year, there is a meeting, which is very interesting. Mingzhou is naturally the #1 university in the Magic City. Dida is the highest magic university in the capital. It would be a great surprise if the two most famous magic universities in the country fought each other. It's not just that Mr. Liu is anxious to have a direct exchange between the two sides, but in fact, it's also the intention of their school. Because only by really killing Mingzhou University, they can sit more comfortably in the position of the leader. In terms of the schedule, the other 6 universities will fight each other, including those in the south, north, west, and east, all of which are well-known universities in China. But both the students and teachers of the Imperial Capital Academy were not very concerned. They wanted to deal with the people of the Pearl Academy the most. After all, there was nothing worth caring about from other schools. Because the competition was in the afternoon, Tang Mao spent the morning in meditation in the apartment. Zhao Manan was recovering from the blow he suffered last night. As for the others, they should have been fighting with the people of the Imperial Capital Academy. In the afternoon, everyone came to the fighting hall for the competition. The fighting hall was very large and magnificent. The huge white pillars outside the door reminded people of the grandeur of the Colosseum in ancient Rome. The style of the fighting hall was very different, and it was also modeled after the Roman Colosseum, presenting a round ring shape. Some specially designed honeycomb hollows made it stand taller and more visually beautiful. The moment the two teams arrived, a strong smell of gunpowder burned. The other teacher, Lu, even took a special look at Tang Mao. He looked as if he remembered what happened yesterday. Tang Mao originally wanted to go out and say something harsh, but then he thought that if he did that, it would be too ostentatious and make people hate him. So he didn't intend to move in the first game. When Guhan, the teacher in charge of the competition arrangement, saw that Tang Mao was not going to make a move in the first game, he named Chen Mingxiao, Luo Song, Peng Liang, and Zhao Manan to play. Of course, Luo Song and Chen Mingxiao both applied to play voluntarily. One was because he was unhappy with one of the opponents, and the other wanted to show himself in front of several young and beautiful girls in the school. In short, he just wanted to be in the limelight. Zhu Daling, Liao Mingsun, Jingjing, Zhao Mingyu, the four of you will take the lead, don't let us down. After Mingsu Academy confirmed the players, Lu Yiming also immediately named 4 people. Jingjing and Zhao Mingyu are 2 female magicians, both of whom are very beautiful. They are the type that you can like at first sight. As for the other 2, there is nothing outstanding. One is a dark muscular man, and the other is a pale white face. In short, none of them are as elegant and handsome as him. There were some people sitting on both sides. They should be from Xiamen University and East China University. They were watching the game with gloating. However, no matter what the ranking of these universities is, the exchange students here are all mid-level magicians, and most of them have reached the mid-level for a while, and some of them may have reached the second level. But think about it, there are still a few mid-level students in that school. Those who can be sent out to win glory for the school must be masters among masters, and there are many talents in various regions. There must be many young and promising people like me. I didn't come in the morning, so I don't know how strong they are. Anyway, the girls are all very pretty. The game between Mingsu University and Didi University was announced to start after announcing that magic weapons were not allowed to be used. At the beginning of the game, the 4 people on the Didi University side cooperated very well, while the 4 people on the Mingsu University side had not yet discussed the output and support. After a magic bombardment, although several people did not break bones, they still suffered some minor injuries. Moreover, without any surprise, the Mingsu Academy knelt down. Tang Mao, Mo Fan, Muna Jiro, Songza, the 4 of you, get ready. Guhan looked at the battle that ended on the stage and said to Tang Mao and the other 4 students. Tang Mao nodded, and Chen Mingxiao, who had just failed to pretend to be cool, wanted to continue to play. However, this kind of trash on the stage would add burden, so after a look from Tang Mao, he shut up obediently. Because, the moment Tang Mao looked over, the air around was extremely cold. How could Chen Mingxiao dare to speak? Feeling this powerful ice attribute breath, Guhan was relieved. At least Tang Mao was not here to slack off, so he was relieved. P.S. I changed 65, or follow your own thoughts. If you feel dissatisfied that Mo Fan has no role, don't read it. After all, I said when I opened the book that it was for the female supporting role. In this book, he is just a diving member, and he will be pulled out and used when needed. I'm not arrogant, I just have my own ideas, sorry. In addition, I'll reveal that after the protagonist gets the demon system, the awakening is the 3rd system. I don't plan to write all the awakenings before the forbidden spell. It's meaningless. After all, the whole process is before the forbidden spell. Chapter 77, Ice Beauty Muningsu. When Tang Mao and his 4 companions were walking towards the field, Teacher Lu from the Imperial Capital Academy also began to call out names. Lu Zeng, Mingkong, Xiao Jin, Xiao Feng, the 4 of you go ahead. If the Mingsu Academy only has that much ability, the 4 of you are enough to deal with them. Lu Yiming said with a smile. The strength of the 4 people in the first group was only average in their team. If the Mingsu Academy couldn't even deal with the people in the first group, then they would have no chance of winning the second round. As for Tang Mao's arrogance yesterday, it was just nonsense in his eyes. Teacher, let me go ahead. At this moment, a beautiful voice like an ice crystal silver bell came from the parasol. Everyone's eyes were suddenly focused on the girl under the parasol. The parasol was very large, and in the dark of the stairs, many people did not notice the girl quietly blooming like a cluster of ice lotus under the scorching sun in the afternoon. It was not until she stood up and an inexplicable cold air lingered around her and slowly spread to the surroundings that people were surprised to find such a beautiful and independent woman in the team of the Imperial Capital Academy. She walked into the sun, but the scorching sun was dimmed a little. The faint ice mist set off her graceful figure. The high boots covered with snow-white goose feathers wrapped the entire delicate and attractive calves. The round and straight long legs were half covered by the long leather windbreaker. The snow-white windbreaker seemed to be tailor-made, and it still outlined the amazing curves of her figure when she was draped over her body. Her figure was already outstanding, and what made people even more attracted to her was her beautiful face. Her facial features were perfect, as if she had walked out of a painting, without even a single flaw. If there was anything that made people feel uncomfortable about her face, it was her expression of loneliness and arrogance. But this also fits the beautiful saying that ice and snow are the skin and jade is the bones. Her long silver white hair was very eye-catching under the scorching sun, and it matched her snow-white skin, exuding a different temperament. It was hard to tell whether it was the enchanting seductiveness or the nobleness of the peerless independence. When the woman came out, not only did everyone in the Imperial Capital Academy focus on her, but even the teachers and students from other schools who were watching the game were completely attracted. Tang Mao, who had already walked into the venue, naturally saw Muningsu. It must be said that he felt that every part of this woman could be played with for several years. Even with Munigio following him, he still looked indifferent. Looking at Emofan next to him, he was also excited. Tang Mao glanced at Emofan, then at Muningsu, thinking, sure enough Emofan is still suitable to be a sister control. Such a nice beauty is a perfect match for me. If there is anything inappropriate, it is that binking is too cold. But it happens that sleeping with an iceberg beauty is almost a common dream for men. There was endless discussion around the field, and booing was even more. Who would have thought that the strongest person in the Imperial Capital Academy would be such a charming woman? And at the Pearl Academy, superficial men like Zhao Manan and Luo Song would have their eyes on her long ago. TSK. This exchange student trip was not in vain. If I can get this woman, I don't even need my family property. I have decided she is the woman I, Zhao Manan, want to conquer. Zhao Manan vowed outside the field. Peng Liang nodded without denying it. Shen Mingxiao, this male bitch, usually pretends when he sees a beautiful woman, but this time he couldn't pretend anymore, and his eyes never left Muningsu. Don't even think about it. Emofan wiped his saliva and said, why, she's already taken? Peng Liang asked. Yes, she's my first wife. Emofan answered seriously. No one cared about what Emofan said. It was as if they were just looking at a clown. Emofan curled his lips, as if you didn't understand. Okay, let you fight for the honor of the school, not to be jealous here. You've lost before you even started the game. Teacher Guhan said. Because of Tang Mao, this time, several teachers were not too disappointed. After all, how about her natural spirit seed? Can she be comparable to Tang Mao who has a soul seed? Moreover, Guhan heard that Tang Mao's current strength has been perfected in 4 systems. Dean Zhao sent him here, and the ending is already determined. Of course, Muningsu's appearance was surrounded by ice mist. That was only because she could not control her own power as freely as Tang Mao. Munigio looked at Tang Mao and said, how is she compared to you? Tang Mao shrugged and said, of course she is not as strong as me. Even if they come together, they are not strong enough for me to beat. Emofan next to him applauded and said, brother, you are awesome. Songzai looked at Emofan, who had just finished boasting, and then looked at Tang Mao. She always felt that both of them were unreliable. The main reason was that Songzai did not know much about Tang Mao's strength. Munigio and Emofan, on the other hand, felt that the victory or defeat had been decided at the beginning. Muningsu came up. She obviously did not cast any magic, nor did she release the aura of ice. She just walked up, but like the queen of ice and snow, wherever she passed, an ice and snow field was immediately formed. Let me take the lead, Lu Zeng said to Muningsu with a somewhat flattering look. Muningsu nodded and looked at Emofan. She had seen the amazing scene when Emofan defeated Yuang. Muningsu could not help but wonder what level Emofan had reached in Mingsu Academy. Most importantly, Muningsu knew Emofan's ability. She didn't want her team to lose to Mingsu. Even if they tied, it would be a great shame for the Imperial Capital Academy. Ice Vine. Muningsu took a step back. Ice crystals were sliding down her white palms. She pursed her charming lips and blew gently. Frost flew, and the crystal clear powder filled the entire battlefield. The cold air immediately dissipated all the air here. The ground was originally a thin layer of frost, which looked like ice yarn. But after Muningsu used the Ice Vine skill, the frost turned into a living plant, covering and spreading densely like a creeper. But when it was about to reach Tangmao and others, the ice layer suddenly thickened. But it did not continue to spread to their side, but reversed back. After seeing the ice layer thicker than Muningsu's, Teacher Lu of the Imperial Capital Academy was dumbfounded. Then he looked over, but didn't see anyone from Mingsu Academy taking action. Teacher Lu was stunned, and so were the people from Didi Academy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 78 Personal Show. Thanks, book friend with the last number 403 for the reward. Thanks to StarCraft Flame Dragon for the reward of 1888 book coins. Thanks to Soul of the Heart for the reward of 6666 book coins. And thanks to you Giant Hell. Thanks for the reward. This scene was not to mention others. Even Muningsu was stunned. It's not like she hasn't seen geniuses before, but it's the first time she has seen an ice mage who suppresses her skills without even showing the star map. Looking at Tangmao, Muningsu was stunned for a while. Tangmao waved his hand, and the ice layer on the ground suddenly broke with a snap. When the ice layer broke, the ground emerged. Everyone in the Imperial Capital Academy was stunned after seeing this scene. Just waving his hand, and the ice layer broke directly. Absolute domain. After Tangmao muttered softly, at the moment when the ice layer broke, Tangmao's domain was opened, and the ice that had just broken condensed into a thick ice layer again, covering the ground. The moment the domain emerged, several people from the Imperial Capital Academy suddenly felt like they were standing on an iceberg that never sees the sun. The cold ice power made it impossible for them to draw the magic star map. It was only because Muningsu was an ice element and was born awakened that she was better off, not as unbearable as them. Telekinesis. Seeing that several people could no longer bear it, a space force emerged and then directly pushed the three people who could not draw the star map out. Muningsu used wind magic and rose into the air. Teacher Lu from the Imperial Capital Academy looked at the scene in front of him with surprise. Thinking back to yesterday, he suddenly realized that the clown seemed to be himself. He solved 3 people with 1 move, and even the strongest Muningsu was directly forced out of the second element. Is there any need to compare? Originally, the Imperial Capital Academy wanted to slap the face of the Pearl Academy this time, but unexpectedly, it was slapped in the face. The first team won the game, but compared to the second team, the first team's battle was nothing. Tangmao looked at Muningsu who was flying into the air, then turned back to the other 3 and said, "Why don't you show off?" As he spoke, the power of the domain dissipated directly. Although he had the absolute power to suppress, Dean Zio only told him not to be low-key, but did not say to crush the opponent to death. After all, it was the top university in the country, and Tangmao did not want to cause trouble, so he just wanted to let the opponent know his strength, which was enough. Hearing this, Munugio, Songza, and Emofan hesitated for a moment, and then each took action. Songza and Munugio felt that Tangmao was giving them a chance to show off. Otherwise, wouldn't it be nothing after coming here? Entangle. Fierce Fist. Munugio used Divine in her hand to bind Muningsu in the sky. Songza drew a star map and then punched out with a Fierce Fist. Without the suppression of Tangmao's domain, Muningsu's wind power dissipated, and she stood on the ground, watching the 2 people's attacks. Her ice attribute gathered around her. The speed of her drawing the star map was probably not as fast as Tangmao's. As for the others, they were naturally not as good as her. They were bound to lose this game, but Muningsu didn't want to lose so badly. If it got out, the Imperial Capital Academy would be really embarrassed. Panbing. Ice lock. Grindbone. The sound of the ice spirit came out, and the hands controlled these ice soul chains to directly extinguish Song Zaya's flames, and Munigio's vines were also directly frozen. At the same time, the ice chains went straight to the two women. Fan stood in front of them at this time, and then the Firestar map appeared under his feet. Fierce Fist. Booming Sky. Boom. After the power of the fire hit the ice lock, the energy of the two elements shattered and dissipated in the air. After seeing the attack was resolved, Muningsu drew the star map again, and released the wind magic. Windpan. Cheyenne Luo. The sapphire blue wind slowly lifted Muningsu's body up. Her exquisite long boots lifted off the ground lightly, and she was actually slightly suspended. Her long silver hair fluttered gorgeously in the wind, and her long middle parted bangs, that originally fell to her chest also flew up, revealing her almost perfect face. Her bright eyes gradually showed the blue color of the wind elf. When it shone brightly, one could see with the naked eye the blue aura that occupied a diameter of 20 meters surrounding her graceful body. It was this wind aura that made her appear slightly suspended. Muningsu, with her hands folded on her chest, instantly transformed from an ice spirit girl into a storm princess, so noble that people dared not even have the slightest blasphemous intention. This powerful second level wind disc, Cheyenne Luo. It suddenly surged up from the target's location, forming a gyro-shaped super large whirlwind with a maximum diameter of 20 meters. At the moment the skill was released, a high-speed rotating wind wall was formed around the target. Unless you could break through this wind wall at the beginning, you could only stand in the eye of the wind disc, Cheyenne Luo, and then wait for the whole wind disc Cheyenne Luo to spin high and be stirred into the rotating wind wall, suffering the pain of being torn apart by the wind devil. When the whirlwind came, the three felt that they could not resist it. Song Zaya and Munigio were directly blown out of the venue. Fan was also a little bit unable to withstand this strong wind, but this time, he did not have the spirit level flame to blast this strong wind. However, he still had the ability of the shadow system to avoid her wind. But unfortunately, if he was exposed now, it would be of almost no benefit to him. Fan had no choice but to choose, I surrender. Hearing this, Muningsu's cold eyes did not show any sense of pride. After all, they still lost, and dispersed their wind power. After defeating Fan and the other two, she did not compete with Tang Mao. If she had to fight, she could certainly fight, but in the end, even if she played all her cards, she might not be able to win. Because Tang Mao is almost the strongest person of her age that she has met so far. I surrender. With Muningsu's surrender, the magic competition ended. Although it seemed to be a 1-1 draw, everyone knew that Mingsu Academy had the upper hand. Tang Mao's control over the ice system had almost reached his heart's content. Fighting him in a restricted field without using magic tools, there was almost no possibility of victory, because in this frost field, the star map could not be depicted. Of course, Teacher Lu, who had been a little proud before, no longer had any proud expression at this time. Instead, the instructors on the Mingsu Academy side had smiles on their faces from the bottom of their hearts. Although Muningsu defeated Munigio, Song Zaya, and Fan, who can't see that this is Tang Mao's way of saving face for the Imperial Capital Academy, this competition is a complete one-man show. As for the new participants from the Imperial Capital Academy, although they are still talking nonsense, they are already completely kneeling in their hearts. A pervert like Tang Mao is probably one of the best in the world. Don't mess with me. Chapter 79 Field Training. Thanks, Zuanshan God of War for the reward. Thanks to Nansheng for the reward. Thanks to the Boring Me for the reward of 600 book coins. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 673 for the reward. Thanks to Zinchen for the reward of 588 book coins. Thanks to the handsome young master for the reward. Thanks to Zuhuan for the reward. Thanks to Bing for the reward of 688 book coins. After the competition, Teacher Lu had to leave with his team in disgrace. Next, it is the field experience. No matter how strong you are in the safety world, it is just that. It is the right thing to survive intact outside the safety world. Since students are all practicing in places like colleges and cities, even if they have actual combat, they are just fighting against mages. After all, there are still many shortcomings. Therefore, the experience of facing demons is essential. A powerful magician does not necessarily need strong strength. What is more important is how to survive well in the world where demons are rampant. The experience of college is not the small military training in high school, but directly sending students outside the safe world, without teachers to follow, and without hunters to protect them. Students must rely on themselves to overcome many difficulties and face monsters. Death is inevitable in this kind of experience, but as a magician, you should be prepared for this on the day you awaken your own magic department. As for the result of the competition in the Imperial Capital Academy, it naturally spread. Dean Zhao was not surprised at all after receiving the news. After all, when Tang Mao agreed to go, he had already thought of this result. What a shitty genius of the Imperial Capital, in front of Tang Mao, this monster. They are all younger brothers. And this matter spread quickly, especially in the Imperial Capital Academy. After learning that Tang Mao had become famous, they scolded Dean Zhao for being shameless, although his age is also among the ranks of freshmen. But, for a guy with at least the top 3 talents, can age be a problem? Dean Zhao clearly sent someone to challenge. But what can the Imperial Capital Academy do? He could only choose to endure it. After all, the strength of the students was so low. Even those who had not graduated from the Imperial Capital Academy were no match for Tang Mao. After all, there were not many students in the Imperial Capital Academy who could defeat Muningsu. As for where Tang Mao's talent ranked, there was no way to say it. After all, he was born with dual element and had his own soul seed. It was really impossible to rank him. Fortunately, Tang Mao's soul seed could be perfectly controlled. Otherwise, there would always be some fools who would come to cause trouble. For example, the Court of Dissenters. However, even if he really couldn't control his own power, he would not let this group of mentally retarded people cause trouble. Especially that ridiculous reason. What a bullshit maintenance of world peace. What a disaster prevention. For these bullshit, only the stupid woman who was frozen in Xianshan would accept it. If it were him, even if he had to go all the way to the end, he would never choose to compromise. No matter what power it was, as long as he didn't use it to harm people, wouldn't it be looking for trouble? If he still made mistakes, the shady people in the black church can't be caught, but those who walk in the sun are more capable than the other. It's disgusting to think about it. However, when he awakened magic, he was lucky to have the help of the tool snake. Otherwise, he might be a guinea pig somewhere now. After returning to the apartment, Teacher Guhan looked at the few people and reminded them, next, you will go outside the safe world to practice. There are no protection measures for this practice, so if you encounter danger, no one will save you. Hearing this, Zhao Manyan, Luo Song, and Shen Mingxiao were all dumbfounded. Going to the demon world without any protection, relying on a few middle-level mages? Who came up with this decision? They really wanted to ask, how dare they do this? Question mark? Looking at the confused looks on the faces of the few people, Teacher Guhan said again, we will issue you a light magic signal pen. If you are trapped somewhere, we will send out rescue, provided that you are alive. When everyone heard this, their expressions instantly stiffened. There have been deaths and injuries in college training in previous years. In short, I hope that you will not be a little lax when you step into the training and don't do anything risky. Maybe you will think that, even if you encounter a few demons, you can easily deal with them. But what I want to tell you is, don't think things are so simple. Teacher Guhan also said very seriously at this time. Qiuyuhua couldn't help but remind him, you will have demon classes on weekdays, and teachers will also explain some information outside the Anji. In fact, most of the teachers who teach you have never left the Anji themselves. You think that what they tell you can save your life when you are in trouble. That's not realistic. In short, be careful. A few people go out, and a few people come back. Looking at the serious expressions of the teachers, they all knew that this was not a joke. It was really a life-threatening situation. Of course, Qiuyuhua also gave everyone some advice. That is, to bring a set of good armor magic tools, so that when danger comes, you can still save your life. Tang Mao has armor magic tools, but it's a pity that they are advanced. He can't use it now. However, with his ice defense, as long as he doesn't run into monarch level bosses, it won't be a big problem. And this time, the training will only be at the command level at most. As long as you are not surrounded by beasts, don't panic. There are 5 days left before the training. During these 5 days, Tang Mao and Zhao Manan were almost intoxicated in bars and dance halls every day. Rich young masters know how to have fun, and they have different arrangements every day. The two of them have similar interests. However, when chatting up some ordinary girls, Tang Mao is never as good as Zhao Manan. Others hit 3 home runs in 5 days, while Tang Mao said, he just doesn't like these rouge and powder. A few days passed quickly, and the wish to, so the world was absolutely hit just in China. This made Tang Mao very helpless, especially when he saw Zhao Manan's comfortable look, which made him want to beat him all the time. However, Tang Mao finally injured it, and just gave him a full body massage with thunder. Slapping someone in the face hurts their self-esteem. After being beaten once, Zhao Manan was no longer so proud. There was nothing he could do. Tang Mao was too strong. Although he had a lot of defensive magic tools, he couldn't stand Tang Mao's thunder. During this period, Mo Fan successfully used all his savings to upgrade the Phantom Wolf Beast. Just like the original work, the Phantom Wolf Beast successfully advanced to the general level. After the 5th day, Qiyu Yuha and Guhan, the 2 teachers, gave them a lot of warnings before leaving the apartment. It was because of nothing. After all, experience is not a joke. They are all the best of their peers in this year, and no one wants them to get into trouble. However, experience is necessary. Otherwise, how can they be a magician who protects the city in the future? Chapter 80 Heading to the Deserted City. After a while, they came to the conference hall of the Imperial Capital Academy. Today's host was naturally Dean Song of the Imperial Capital Academy, who would explain the training matters to everyone. The students of Mingsu Academy and Imperial Capital Academy were going to the same place for training, so their meeting was held together. The training destination this time is Jinlin City in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River Plain. Dean Song said, Jinlin City? How come I have never heard of such a city? Jingjing, who knew a lot about geography, couldn't help but speak. She was a genius with an amazing memory. She remembered all the cities in the country very clearly, but she had never heard of the Jinlin City that Dean Song mentioned. Teacher Qiyu Yuha of Mingsu Academy sighed and said, this Jinlin City is a little special, because it was wiped off the map 15 years ago. Dean Song sighed slightly and said, 15 years ago, a demon disaster occurred in Dongting Lake. The overproliferation of demons attacked the city. Unfortunately, a wizard noticed the disaster while parading in the wild and notified the government in advance to evacuate the people. On the next day, the demons attacked the city, and those who did not have time to leave were all buried in the city of Jinlin. When mentioning this, Dean Song was obviously a little sad, but it was only for a moment. A student from the Imperial Capital Academy asked, isn't it a deserted city now? That's right. Song he nodded, and then said, 10 years ago, it was a paradise for demons. In recent years, many hunters have reported that most of the demons there have disappeared, and we have also received preliminary confirmation. Today's Jinlin City is no longer as scary as it used to be. The purpose of letting you go there this time is because I need data from this entire deserted city. In Jinlin City, although most of the demon tribes have moved away, there are still different kinds of people wandering around. What you have to do is to scout as many places in this city as possible and record down how many slave level demons and general level creatures you encounter. Hearing this, many people breathed a sigh of relief. It is not difficult to just collect data. Dean Song nodded and then said, yes, what we need is a danger assessment of Jinlin City. This is to consider whether to rebuild there. Everyone was talking about it, and at this time the stupid fat man Luo Song asked, Dean, you asked us to count the number of slave level and general level monsters, so shouldn't the commander level monsters be included? Oh, if you encounter a commander level monster, it would be amazing if you can come back alive. Dean Song said lightly. Although he said it very easily, everyone present couldn't help but shudder. After all, when they reach the strength of the commander level, not only are their IQs not worse than humans, but their territorial awareness is also extremely strong. Tang Mao was particularly impressed by this. After all, when he went to Xianshan, he and the big snake had fought a lot because of this. Dean Song said, individual ability is limited in a deserted city full of demons. I hope that, whether it is the students of Mingsu Academy or the Imperial Capital Academy, they will learn to help each other and come back safely this time. After Song's introduction and the instructions of several teachers from the two schools, everyone embarked on a journey of training. Dongting Lake Plain also belongs to the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River and is located in the northern part of Yunnan province. This is not a tourist destination, but the third largest fierce lake in China. Such a huge lake is surrounded by various different ecosystems, and there are countless demons living in it. Among them, the notorious lizard skull giant demon tribe, which occupied Jinlin City as its nest, used Dongting Lake as their base camp. After arriving at the nearest city, the people from the two academies had no choice but to walk to Jinlin City. During this period, Jingjing from the Imperial Capital Academy told everyone about some things about the demon tribe. Of course, this was also the reason why Emofan asked. Luo Song was still unhappy with Emofan, and the incident in Bo City irritated Emofan, but when he was scolded by Muningsu, he shut up. After a while, they were about 50 kilometers away from Anji. There were still military mages patrolling this area, and they didn't encounter any blind monsters. But it would be hard to say if they went deeper into the mountains and old forests. We just need to follow this abandoned railway. Songzha, holding a map, pointed to the moss-covered railway track under her feet. There was nothing wrong with Songzha's way of pointing the way. Although Jinlin City was destroyed, there was nothing wrong with the railway track. Everyone agreed, and Tang Mao, a person with a poor sense of direction, would not steal the limelight. But there are always people who like to show off, such as Lu Zeng. After Songzha determined the route, he was not polite at all, and directly stated his identity as the leader. He looked at everyone and said, "It's been agreed in advance that I have always been the commander in the team. Since the school requires us to cooperate to complete this training mission, there can't be no rules for the 17 of us. I will be the commander. You can give your opinions, but I will decide the general direction. How to go, how to deal with monsters, when to rest, all these are decided by me." The people from the Imperial Capital Academy didn't have any objections. Of course, the people from the Pearl Academy would not listen to his command. "Let Songzha command us here. You can discuss everything." Zhao Manan suddenly interrupted. No one from the Pearl Academy had any objection to this. After all, they were from two different schools, and it was not a bad thing for each school to have its own commander and discuss everything. Especially Songzha was quite responsible. According to Zhao Manan, he simply didn't like the feeling of Lu Zeng being a bootlicker. Otherwise, he wouldn't care who the captain was. Lu Zeng also agreed. After all, he didn't think he could command the people of the Pearl Academy. The route forward has been decided, so they just walked along the abandoned railway track. Although they have been out of the Anji for dozens of miles, they did not encounter any demons. It seems that there are really not many demons in this city. After a long walk, it didn't take too much time. After all, they are all magicians, and even if they are walking, their speed is much faster than that of ordinary people. Moreover, there were not many demons blocking them along the way, so they walked most of the way smoothly, until they came to a mountain track. Everyone had to choose to stop. P.S. If I don't ask for monthly tickets, no one will vote. Then, my friends, please give me monthly tickets and reward me! Exclamation mark. If you have a large reward, please come to Kidian app. 15 yuan for a monthly ticket, thank you. Thank you. Open bracket, close bracket. Chapter 81, Entering the Cave. Thanks, book friend suffix 814 for the reward. Thanks to Xinchen for the reward. Thanks to Wuming for the reward of 500 book coins. Thanks to suffix 277 for the reward. Thanks to Nansheng for the reward. Thanks to Xinglian for the reward. Thanks to book friend suffix 969 for the reward of 500 book coins. Thanks to book friend Chigulayan Yi for the reward of 1500 book coins. Thanks to Yazhibo Shuchen for the reward. Thanks to suffix 465 for the reward of Ning Meng voting some lemons and a bit sour. Thanks for the monthly ticket. After stopping, Songzai took the map and said to the people behind her, I looked at the map. This tunnel is 2 kilometers long. Judging from the frequency of demons we encountered before, this tunnel is likely to be inhabited by demons. My suggestion is that we go directly over this mountain and don't deal with those unknown species and unknown numbers of creatures in the dark cave. I think you are too cautious. No matter what is inside, just kill it directly. This tunnel is 2 kilometers long, so I don't know how long it will take to cross the whole mountain. Lu Zeng also interrupted at the right time. Everyone was obviously not interested in taking a long detour. Moreover, in their opinion, there were no tough guys along the way, and there shouldn't be any big problems in this tunnel. Liao Mingxuan from the Imperial Capital Academy also said, I agree to go straight through here. If we go the long way, no one can be sure that we won't encounter other monsters. Songzai looked at the people from the Pearl Academy and saw that they didn't want to go the long way, so she nodded and agreed. Okay, then go through. But who will go in front? Lu Zeng summoned his warrior demon wolf and said, let me do it. The summoned beast has strong vitality, and it is obviously the most suitable to detect in front. The person walking at the back must also be strong enough. It can't be a summoned beast that can't make a rational response in the first time when there is a situation. Lu Zeng continued, after summoning the demon wolf. Songzai said, then I will go at the back. However, the moment she opened her mouth, Zhu Dalong from the Imperial Capital Academy seemed to show off himself, or maybe he was trying to show his courtesy and said, how can you let a girl come for such a dangerous thing? I will go at the back. Songzai didn't say anything. After all, although Zhu Dalong was not pleasing to the eye, he was majoring an Earth system. In times of crisis, he can provide protection for everyone. Then, Lu Zeng's magic wolf, Shen Mingxiao and Liao Mingxuan led the way, and Zhu Dalong was at the back. The rest of the people walked in the middle. After entering the cave, Zhao Manan and Songzai, both of whom possessed the lighting skill, controlled the light ball to float above their heads and illuminate the front. The cave had obviously not been exposed to sunlight for a long time. Zhao Manan and Songzai had to light up a lighting scale every 10 meters they walked, on the one hand for lighting, and on the other hand, to dispel the foul air in the cave. It's not clear whether the foul air here is poisonous or not, but it's definitely not good to breathe it in. The smell of damp poisonous grass, demon feces, and miasma that has been precipitated by years of lack of ventilation. What's going on ahead? Nothing. It's just strange that there seems to be some white gravel scattered here. I guess it's left over from the previous project. Keep going. Songzai would ask every few minutes. Obviously she was still very alert. Unlike Songzai's cautiousness, Tang Mao was completely leisurely along the way. Then he looked at Munijio, who was wearing a tight long t-shirt, which outlined her bust very well. The fragrance on her body was particularly attractive in this narrow area, and even the fragrance she exhaled seemed to have a special seductive magic. In an apartment before, Tang Mao was also very rogue. But where is this place? The wilderness where demons roam. At this time, Tang Mao actually still wanted to take advantage of her, which made Munijio extremely helpless. Can you be more alert? This is the wilderness. Tang Mao didn't care, patted his chest and said, what are you afraid of? Even if danger comes, I will keep you safe. All you need to do is stay with me along the way. Munijio was a little shy, but she had to say that in the wilderness, she felt quite at ease with Tang Mao following her. After all, his strength was there. The firepower of one person was equal to that of the entire team. However, although she felt relieved, Munijio didn't want to give Tang Mao an excuse to take advantage of her, so she whispered, who needs your protection? Tang Mao shrugged and said, Jio, as a girl, you have to learn to find a shoulder to lean on. Although others don't feel safe, I definitely feel safe here. Seeing Tang Mao finish speaking, he was about to reach out and hug her. Munijio hurriedly trotted away. She knew exactly what Tang Mao was thinking. Did she really think she was AI22? Just saying a few nice words and thinking of taking advantage? No way. Tang Mao shrugged after hugging nothing. Indeed, if it was AI22, she would have been hugged by her now. What a pity. Silly Rabbit was not there, but Munijio was quite cunning. Ice Vine. At this moment, Tang Mao's ice magic was suddenly released, and the direction of the impact was exactly towards Munugio. After Munugio felt Tang Mao's magic release, she was stunned. She even began to wonder if Tang Mao would take her to the back. Pa. Just as Munugio was thinking about it, she suddenly heard the sound of ice breaking. Then she realized that Tang Mao had not attacked her just now. Looking back, she saw several hunched over figures, holding bone sticks with brown dried blood in their hands, falling to the ground. But they seemed to be cold. However, thinking of Tang Mao's magic attack just now, that is to say, before she ran over, the other party was alive. Jiao, come here. After dealing with a few little ghosts, Tang Mao shouted, and then looked at the people in front and said, pay attention, there is a situation. Hearing this, Lu Zeng, who was leading the way in front, stopped and looked back, and asked in confusion, what's wrong? It's a cave demon slave. Before Tang Mao responded, he walked to the place where Tang Mao had just dealt with the monster, and Jing immediately recognized what kind of monster it was. Hearing this, Lu Zeng in front said indifferently, it's just a few servant level demons, nothing to worry about. Let's keep going. The moment Lu Zeng finished speaking, the cave demon slave who was still hiding in the side cave screamed sharply when he saw his companion die tragically. This cry was easily resounding in the narrow tunnel. It was unknown whether it was a cry of anger or fear. In short, this guy didn't dare to jump out again. Lu Zeng still didn't care. After all, it was just a few servant level demons. There was nothing to be afraid of. Just when he was about to continue moving forward, he suddenly found a pair of blue bright spots in front of the dark tunnel. At first, there were only a few pairs of blue bright spots. After a few seconds, these blue bright spots were dotted in the darkness ahead, densely packed, and people's hair stood up. Not good. It's calling its companions. Peng Liang, who was not far behind Lu Zeng, exclaimed after seeing these cave demon slaves. Chapter 82, Fighting Out. With the appearance of the cave demon slaves, the shouting did not stop. It was not clear how many cave demon slaves there were, but judging from the current situation, there must be a lot of them. Songzia and Zhao Manan hurriedly released the light of radiance again, and the light that flew forward illuminated a large section of the tunnel in front. What made people gasp was that the side caves covered by black vines like before were actually arranged in rows. If the cave demon slaves had not torn open the disguised black vine curtains, I'm afraid everyone would have thought that this was a straight railway tunnel. At the same time, cave demon slaves appeared in front, behind, left and right. This is a cave demon slave's nest, and those white gravels are all bones that were smashed alive by these monsters. Zhao Manan finally reacted. At this moment, his life was threatened, and he threw away all his gentlemanly manners. He kept saying civilized language. Ice vine. Looking at the situation around him, Tang Mao hurriedly took action. If these cave demon slaves were outside, they would not be a big deal, but in this narrow track, they were full of deadly threats. There was no other reason. Although their team could kill some of them with magic, if the cave demon slaves mixed into the crowd, they would not only fail to kill them, but also might kill each other. Freeze. As Tang Mao took action, a thick layer of ice quickly covered the wall, and the last Zudalang also released a barrier to resist. Those in front opened the way quickly. The freezing on both sides consumed a lot of magic energy. After the freezing on both sides was completed, Tang Mao shouted, after all, this kind of large-scale freezing can only resist for a few minutes at most. When everyone was shocked by the ice walls on both sides, they heard Tang Mao shouting, and heard the cave demon slaves in the walls on both sides knocking continuously, and they immediately came back to their senses. The output mages in front of them took action to clear the monsters at the same time, although there were many in front. However, under the bombardment of intermediate magic, they had no ability to resist. The most important thing was that the left, right and back sides were blocked. Now it was enough to kill a way out in front. After the demon slaves were scattered by a wave of bombing in front, Lu Zeng commanded his general level wolf summon beast to rush forward all the way, and looked at Tang Mao and others behind him, shouting, the front has been cleared, let's go. After Tang Mao withdrew his hand, he pulled Munugio who was protecting him and ran forward. As Tang Mao's magic power was withdrawn, a large number of cave demon slaves on both sides continued to knock and smash the wall. These servant level demons can be killed by Tang Mao with a casual blow. But the reproduction ability of beasts like demons is really powerful. No one knows how many cave demon slaves there are in this cave. Although Tang Mao can kill, this road is still very long. If he keeps fighting here, there will be no benefit, and he may be exhausted and die. So even though he knew that the other party was a weak chicken, he still chose to escape. It is not without reason that demons are stronger than humans. They have strong bodies and no blue tubes. As long as they are alive, they can output. So, no matter how powerful humans are, they are still humans. This is why humans did not dare to take back their territory when there were a lot of demons living here. Munujiro, who was running away with Tang Mao, saw the wall next to him collapse and hurriedly shouted, "Little Thunder Seal." Boom boom. Before Munujiro could finish saying be careful, Tang Mao used a Thunder Seal and killed several cave demon slaves. Just after dealing with the ones in front, a large number of cave demon slaves behind him caught up. Tang Mao originally held Munijiro's hand, and with a little force, he hugged her in his arms, then turned back, stepped on his toes, and used space magic to open a large distance. Zixiro. Thunder Seal. Angry Strike. Boom. At the same time, the star tracks connected, and thunder struck the ground. However, this attack did not cause much damage to the cave demon slaves, but only killed a few of them, and a large number of cave demon slaves continued to rush over. Munujiro, who was being held tightly, looked at the scene in front of her with some confusion. Zixiro. Pali. Yaksha. At this time, Tang Mao finished drawing the star map, and then the second level intermediate thunder magic was blasted out. Zilla. After the thunder struck the first few cave demon slaves, the thunder was like a lightning, and it directly penetrated the dozens of cave demon slaves behind. Boom. A burst of thunder exploded, resounding in the back, and there may be nearly 100 cave demon slaves, which turned into ashes in an instant. Tang Mao stayed for 10 seconds, collected the remaining souls in the Killing Jade, and immediately caught up with the advancing team. Earth Element, use Ground Wave. Lu Zeng shouted, after seeing Tang Mao running with Munijiro in his arms. Zudalang and Luo Song were very obedient and quickly performed the ground wave technique, making the surface under their feet fluctuate forward like a torrent, so that everyone could get collective acceleration when running. The 2-kilometer tunnel was smelly and dirty, with fermented animal carcasses and fesses that had not been cleaned up at all. There was also a large wave of pursuers behind them. No one cared about these problems at this time. They kept moving forward along the railway tunnel. Along the way, the ghost pattern wolf led the way in front, and everyone also divided the work to deal with the monsters that appeared on the left and right. It was not until they saw the light that they breathed a sigh of relief. When they arrived at the entrance of a cave, Tang Mao saw Emofan at the end, and he knew without thinking that the guy was collecting residual souls. He did not fight with him, but turned around and ran out. After all, he had got a lot along the way. Rushing from the darkness into the place where the sun was shining, I couldn't open my eyes for a while, but the moment I bathed in the warm light, I felt as comfortable as if I were in a bathtub. Count the number of people, count the number of people. Lu Zeng seemed to have led a team before, and he did not relax when he rushed out of the tunnel. We are all here. Liao Mingxuan quickly counted the 8 people from their school. Song Zai also counted quickly. When she counted to 8, her face changed immediately, and she said in panic, "We are missing one." Without waiting for Song Zai to finish, Tang Mao said calmly, "Emofan is behind us to cover us. Don't worry, that guy is tough and won't die." Sure enough, less than a minute later, Emofan came out of the cave. It seems that this guy is born to attract hatred. Even if he is not so outstanding, Luo Song and Shen Mingxiao, who are unhappy with him, are still able to exclude him. Chapter 83 Beautiful Scenery. Thanks to Han Luoxano for 1988 book coins. Thanks to the scholar who likes to read fan fiction for 1500 book coins. Thanks to the killer who has no feelings for 500 book coins. Thanks to the ghostwriter who issued for 999 book coins. Thanks to the monthly ticket. but Emo Fan didn't take them as a dish at all and ignored them at all. Seeing Eluo, Song and the other two chattering, Song's Ire interrupted them and said, "Since everything is fine, let's leave quickly and find a place to camp and rest." Although the people in the Imperial Capital Academy can't be said to be very harmonious, at least they don't quarrel so openly. Isn't it a joke to chatter like this? Yeah, I stink all over. I feel a little dizzy. I guess I consumed too much magic energy. After Song's Ire spoke, Jingjing and Xiaomingai also responded immediately. When they entered the tunnel, they held their heads high and looked dignified. After leaving the tunnel, they were exhausted and dusty. Fortunately, Tang Mao froze the walls on both sides in time, so there was no damage. Even Tang Mao was a little dusty. It was indeed different to enter the demon territory with or without the black snake. After finding a place with water near the railway tracks and checking whether there were any demons living around, everyone began to set up tents to rest. At night, the men sat on the ground around the campfire, and the firelight was imprinted on each of their young faces. The night was very quiet, with only the sound of the flames crackling. Suddenly, Zhao Manan broke the silence and said, "Are you sure they are bathing by the stream?" "Yes, Mu Ningxiao and Mu Ningxu are here." The strong hormones turned into a strange aura that enveloped everyone. Some swallowed their saliva, some licked their dry lips, and some couldn't help looking in the direction of the stream. "Peng Liang, how about sending you to check it out? With your shadow ability, they shouldn't be able to detect it." It's not good," Peng Liang said shyly. Although he said it was not good, Peng Liang's body was very honest. His body turned into a black shadow and quietly sank into the shadow of the woods. After Peng Liang left, everyone realized that Tang Mao had disappeared without a trace. Damn, where did Tang Mao go? Did anyone see him? It seems that after the goddesses went to take a shower, he disappeared. Several people discussed for a while, and then said at the same time, "Fuck, beast." Everyone thought that Tang Mao must have slipped away early. When Emo Fan was originally preparing to sneak over to witness a wave of benefits, after hearing several people's discussions, he always felt that he was a little green on his head. But when he was about to leave, he heard someone say, "Hey, why is that forest frozen?" I guess Peng Liang was discovered. Hahaha, this idiot. Our captain's ice field is not covered. As long as there is magic fluctuation within a certain range, it will be detected. Peng Liang is in trouble. Zhu Dalong laughed out loud. Outside the forest, the sky was particularly clean, and the moonlight was so bright that it fell into forest, with swaying shadows of trees and shining streams. There were some clothes with fragrance placed next to them, with different colors and fashionable styles, some gauze, some lace, some tight, and some soft. Under the moonlight, in the stream, fairies like night elves were having fun with the stream, and their black hair was so beautiful. The occasional laughter made this quiet forest even more beautiful. The stream was crystal clear and flowed slowly. Although it was a little cold, it was particularly comfortable. On a big tree not far away, Tang Mao had been sitting here for half a day. I don't know what he is doing. When he sensed Peng Liang's presence, he deliberately threw a stone at the place where Peng Liang appeared, making a slight noise. Then he left. "I'm tired of living." At the same time, a cold voice sounded in the woods, and then a black shadow was seen flying away at a very fast speed. Xiaomingai, Baitingting, Munajiro, Jingjing and other girls all reacted and hurriedly buried themselves in the stream, scanning the surroundings with panicked eyes. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Songza, who was guarding on the shore, ran over quickly and asked in confusion. "It seems like there is someone. There is a fluctuation of the breath of the shadow system." "Who is the shadow system?" "Peng Liang. It must be Peng Liang." Several male students from Mingsu Academy and Imperial Capital Academy were still chatting about some things they had encountered in front of the campfire, and to put it bluntly, they were bragging. But not long after, the beauties appeared with cold faces. Their eyes seemed to be able to penetrate everyone's hearts. Who was it just now? Song's eye was also domineering, pointing directly at the group of men and said angrily. At this time, except for Tang Mao, everyone else was here. The reason why Emo Fan didn't go was because he missed the beautiful scenery because of the residual soul he received before. Who else could it be? There is only one person in our team who has shadow ability. Jing Jing glared at Peng Liang. Peng Liang's face turned pale, and he stood up hurriedly to explain, I didn't. I just went to the forest just now, and I didn't even reach the stream when I was hit by something, and then you found me. I really didn't see anything. Peng Liang, I didn't expect you to be such a person. I feel a little ashamed to be your classmate. Zhao Man'an coughed dryly and said righteously, Zhao Man'an, you. Peng Liang immediately felt like he was betrayed. Just now, every man here encouraged him to feast his eyes, but when the girls questioned him, one of them pretended to be a gentleman. Exclamation mark. Forget it, Song Zai was not always on guard. He probably just wandered around for a while. Humph, shameless. A beast in human form. Hypocrite. The girls angrily accused Peng Liang, who was taking the blame, and the men around the campfire nodded desperately, just to sell Peng Liang out to the end. While the girls were blaming him, Tang Mao came out from the forest behind. After seeing Tang Mao appear, both men and women looked over. Tang Mao said seriously, why are you looking at me? Have you never seen a handsome guy? Hearing this, several people were stunned, and then Jing Jing looked at Tang Mao with some shame and anger and said, what were you doing just now? Before Peng Liang was discovered, they all noticed the movement not far away, but the other party was too fast, so they didn't notice anything. Tang Mao looked calm, shrugged and said, look at the stars. It's rare to survive in the wild. Such a beautiful starry sky is not often seen in the Magic City. Several people looked up and found that the starry sky here is indeed beautiful. Seeing that Tang Mao was here, they could not get any more information from her, so the girls could only return to their tents angrily. As for Peng Liang, at this moment, he felt like Dai. When the girls dispersed, Zhao Man'an ran over and whispered, how is it? Who has the best figure? Hearing this, Tang Mao raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said, guess. Chapter 84 Baiting Ting's Hidden Powers. Thanks, book friend 603 gave 666 book coins. Thanks to Zhuang's Hao Guhan for giving 1500 book coins. Thanks to the handsome young master for giving. Thanks to Chigilian Ai for giving 501 book coins. Thanks to Wu Giran for giving. Thanks to Yu Mengnian for giving 5000 book coins. Thanks to the monthly ticket. Seeing that Tang Mao had been thinking for a long time, he said two words that were still not expected. After that, there was no further news. Zhao Man'an said dissatisfiedly, brother, why are you so greedy? Seeing Zhao Man'an's pleading look, Tang Mao said with a look of sharing resources, Jing Jing and Zhao Mingai who have also reached C. Especially that cold beauty, she should have a D talent. The most hidden one is Baiting Ting. Hearing this, Zhao Man'an was envious. But he was also curious and asked, you don't have any shadow abilities, how did you go there without being discovered? Tang Mao smiled very proudly and said, I prepared well in advance and waited. Fuck. You never do anything related to others. He didn't pay any attention to Zhao Man'an, but thought to himself, I didn't expect that little concubine has the weight of D. I wonder if that silly girl Ai Tutu will put aside her disguise and directly crush Tang Yu. In the middle of the night, outside the tent, a figure rushed into the woods at a very fast speed, looking very anxious. Tang Mao, who was resting, heard the noise and observed it. When he saw that it was the sneaky Lu Zeng, he ignored him and lay down to continue resting. Tang Mao knew what he was doing. However, he would definitely not stop such a thing. After all, as long as he got it, it would be the biggest life-saving trump card. Tang Mao didn't care. Zhao Man'an, who was on night watch, heard the noise and asked a question. However, the other party responded after a hush, so he didn't care. The next day, after everyone woke up, Lu Zeng led the way, and everyone set out on the journey to Jinlin City again. The journey was a journey of trekking through mountains and rivers, and cutting through thorns. Except for the thrilling experience in the cave, the whole process of the group of 17 people was relatively smooth, and they did not encounter so many groups of demons. After walking for nearly 10 days, the remote Jinlin City finally appeared in everyone's eyes. This is a mountain, and the train tunnel still passes through the mountain. This time, everyone did not choose to walk through the dark tunnel, but would rather crawl directly over. As soon as we climbed to the top of the mountain, we immediately saw a vast plain basin. To the west, there were endless plains and low hills extending out, which could be seen at a glance. Everyone looked at the abandoned Jinlin city and was stunned. But it was normal. Wherever demons lived, it would be like this. The houses, streets, and roads were all destroyed. Plants used demon feces as nutrients and grew very fast. There were vines, mosses, and grass everywhere. Let's go. Let's survey the periphery first and count how many demons are wandering here, Songzai said. The periphery of Jinlin city is a very wide plain surrounded by a forest. This forest surrounding the city is one of the points that need to be stepped on. Whether the city has the meaning of reconstruction, we must first know the surrounding situation, and whether it has been completely occupied by demons. After searching, although they encountered several demons, their strength was at the slave level, which did not pose any threat to them. Moreover, they were easily sent away. Lu Zeng rode on his ghost pattern wolf and looked at everyone and said, "It's time to search inside now. Should we search separately or together? Let's go together. Although it's slower, it will be safer," Songzai suggested. Others agreed with Songzai's statement. Lu Zeng had a ghost pattern wolf. As long as he didn't encounter a commander level or a large number of demons, it was not impossible to complete the survey alone. But they might not be able to do it. After all, they didn't have a general level summoned beast. Tang Mao, on the other hand, was the type who went with the flow. He would go wherever everyone asked him to go. Anyway, with his current strength, although he couldn't beat the demons, he could just run away if he couldn't beat them. If he ran away, it wouldn't be a big problem. After entering the deserted city, all kinds of demon feces could be seen everywhere, and the air nearby was extremely bad. Looking at the desolation nearby, Baitingting said with a smile, "Let's find a place to stay before we explore." Hearing the voice, Tang Mao looked back. It's not to mention that he saw the true face of Mount Lu last night, and it always feels a little different today. Moreover, even Munigio beside him always felt as if she was transparent. As if she noticed Tang Mao's eyes, Munigio asked in confusion, "Why are you looking at me all the time?" Hearing this, Tang Mao smiled and said, "You look good." Munigio rolled her eyes at him and took a big step forward with her two slender long legs, as if to distance herself from Tang Mao. "We are equivalent to entering a deserted city, where demons roam freely, and we are facing danger at any time, so the place where we stay must be safe enough. At least when we encounter danger, we must be able to evacuate quickly and defend well." After hearing Baitingting's words, Lu Zeng gave his own opinion. "Then where should we stay?" Songzai asked. At the same time, Mo Fan pointed out a building and said, "Why not go to the building over there?" Hearing this, several people looked over. "You are good at choosing places." Then Songzai smiled, took the map, and compared it and said, "That should be the municipal building of Jinlin." Others had no objection to this, and then everyone walked towards the municipal building. As for Tang Mao, he was talking sweet nothings with Munigio. Although he was rejected all the time, he seemed to become like a dogskin plaster all of a sudden. He couldn't get rid of him. Fortunately, Tang Mao didn't go too far from the beginning to the end, so he was not driven away by Munigio. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 85 Giant Lizard Pseudodragon. Thanks to Archer Bookworm for the reward. Thanks to Zinchen for the reward. After a while, everyone passed through the destroyed accommodation and came to the outside of the municipal building. Just after arriving here, Jingjing said, "This is also an area to be surveyed, but I always feel that this municipal building looks weird. Have you noticed those plants? The plants do not grow towards the sun, but all drill into the municipal hall. It's incredible." Hearing this, Tang Mao paused. Just remembered, there seems to be a demon here. Immediately, the star map depicted that a ray of ice covered the building. If you want to know if there is a problem with this building, the easiest way is to take action to find out. After being wrapped in ice, the branches and vines of the entire building were wriggling. They came alive completely, and they looked ferocious like living things snatching the food they just found. In this situation, almost all mages habitually think that plants are dead things. Even if there are branches and vines everywhere, they just need to pay attention to the creatures living in them. Who would have thought that this gloomy plant is actually a demon, and its branches, tendrils, and trunks are murder weapons? Look up. Liomingson pointed to the second level of the municipal building, which was the large building in the right direction, and said in surprise, "Pseudo-terror demon." Jing Jing said immediately, "It has a higher bloodline, and is extremely difficult to deal with when it is an adult. Because it is more afraid of light, it mostly lives in dark places. I didn't expect that this municipal building would become the natural habitat of this monster. It relies on this building to grow, block the sunlight, and there are fresh living things coming to die." Everyone was sweating, and at the same time, they were glad that they didn't go in directly. Whoosh. At this moment, a black gust of wind not far away hit like a surging wave, blowing the trees on the street to the ground. The debris on the ground clanged, and a rusty bicycle was rolled up and hit a residential building, turning into a pile of metal fragments that continued to fly in the air. The sudden strong wind made everyone a little confused. Moreover, at the same time, everyone felt that their breathing began to become difficult, and cold sweat oozed out of their pores inexplicably. "Did you find anything wrong?" After feeling this oppressive feeling, no one knew who said it. Before anyone could respond, a dark cloud appeared, and then a pair of huge flesh wings slowly expanded as the distance got closer. Under the flesh wings, it was a body like a giant lizard, with thick skin full of bumps covering the head from the head to the tip of the tail. The long tail was half hanging, and the tail was completely sharp, flashing a heart-pounding cold light under the sunlight. Jing Jing exclaimed, "Oh no, it's a lizard-headed giant demon of the commander-level demon." The moment she finished speaking, she fainted directly. Not only Jing Jing, but also people were almost suffocated by this extremely powerful aura. Xiaomingyu, Liomingsun, Shenmingxiao and others who had slightly weaker mental strength, but they might have some protective items, so they were just a little drowsy. The ones who fainted were Jing Jing, Xiaomingyu, Peng Liang, Zhu Daling, Luo Song, Xiaofeng, Bai Tingting, and Menkang. Run. Run. Lu Zeng saw the huge lizard-headed monster and had no thoughts. At this moment, he only wanted to escape. Unfortunately, under this strong pressure, they could hardly move. As for the pseudo-terrorist who was still mad just now, it had completely become food in the mouth of the lizard-headed monster. Although Tang Mao had fought with high-level magicians, could the commander-level monsters be the same as high-level magic? This giant lizard pseudo-dragon has a lizard as the main bloodline, but its flesh wings are definitely inherited from the evil dragon, so it is also called a pseudo-dragon. Its strength is probably stronger than the winged wolf that occupied the top of the Bocheng Silver Trade building. After all, this guy has the blood of an evil dragon. Just in terms of momentum, it is full of a sense of oppression. That is to say, his mental strength is strong, and he can still move, but Tang Mao did not run. Because if he ran, more than a dozen people here would die. Tang Mao is not a good person, and he doesn't care whether these people live or die. But looking at the fainted Bai Tingting, and the other girls, as well as the cold beauty there, and Munijio beside him, he really can't do it without caring about what he does. Zizaro. Thunderbolt. Boom. Tang Mao didn't wait for the giant lizard skull monster to finish eating before choosing to attack, but directly struck with a thunderbolt. Because he naively thought that the giant lizard skull monster would let this group of magicians go after eating the pseudo-terror demon. Boom boom. After a thunderbolt fell, the giant lizard skull monster did not suffer much damage. Instead, he glared at me. The blow just now was extremely painful, and the giant lizard-headed monster was a little confused. He didn't understand how these little ants could do it. How could they hurt themselves? Are you sick? Are you looking for death? After Tang Mao's blow, not only the giant lizard-headed monster glared at him, Liomingsun and Lu Zeng, who were not fainted, also scolded him. Tang Mao heard this. His eyes were full of coldness. For these two idiots, he really didn't want to save them at all. This is a giant lizard pseudo-dragon. I'm leading it away. If you don't want to die now, shut up. After leaving a word, Tangmao ran in the opposite direction. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon seemed to be provoked and chased Tangmao directly. Roar. But before leaving, it roared. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon was also extremely fast. Tangmao was stopped by it before he ran a few steps. Purple sky. Thunderbolt. Wild dance. However, Tangmao had already started to draw the star map when he was running. At the moment when the giant lizard pseudo-dragon's huge body blocked in front of him, Tangmao blasted out a destructive thunder. Boom. Purple sky domain. The thunder bombarded its head in a straight line, and blood flowed out of its huge head like water. It was struck by the thunder of the domain again, and it felt numb in its limbs. Roar. This sudden critical hit made the giant lizard pseudo-dragon really angry. This roar was mixed with a destructive attack force. Fortunately, after Tangmao released the thunder, he summoned the snow girl. The moment he merged with the snow girl, he used the domain of absolute zero, and layers of ice wrapped him in it. But under the bombardment of the lizard skull giant monster, the ice was instantly shattered. Fortunately, because of its head injury, it deviated from the trajectory of the attack, otherwise it would really be dead if it went down this wave. Although Tangmao felt a slight vibration, he still reacted immediately, turned around and continued to escape. Chapter 86 Jiang Yi arrives early. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon shook its big head and immediately chased after it. At this moment, it was thinking about tearing Tangmao into pieces. With the giant lizard pseudo-dragon and Tangmao leaving, everyone was finally relieved. Several people seemed to be exhausted and sat on the ground. Liao Mingxuan was afraid and said, "Is this guy still a human? A mid-level magician, even if it is a third-level mid-level magic, can't be so powerful? You know, that was a giant lizard pseudo-dragon." Mo Fan was also full of surprise, although he always knew that Tangmao was very powerful. However, the attack just now completely refreshed his cognition. Mu Ningxu came back to her senses first and said, "Take them and leave here together." Hearing this, Mo Fan and Lu Zeng immediately summoned their own magic wolves, and then put the few people who were shocked unconscious on the wolves one by one, and then they fled to the outside of Jinlin City. Mu Ningxiao looked at the direction where Tangmao left and said worriedly, "What should we do with Tangmao?" Lu Zeng said with lingering fear, "Even if we stay here, it won't be of much use. Let's escape first. After leaving Jinlin City, he still has a chance to be saved." Hearing this, several people looked at Lu Zeng, obviously not understanding what he meant by this. Lu Zeng did not hide the fact that his brother Lu Nian and others followed him. Zhao Manan and others did not care about his little thoughts, but said, "Then go quickly, go out and ask your brother for help. Maybe Tangmao can still be saved." Okay. On the other side, Tangmao was running wildly under the bombing. It must be said that at this moment, Tangmao was careless. This feeling of dying at any time really scared him from the bottom of his heart. Looking at the two huge broken buildings in front of him, Tangmao's ice power was fully activated. Ice crystal defense. The moment he turned around, an ice layer more than 20 meters high appeared in the air. The power of the snow girl was directly exhausted and disintegrated. As if she felt guilty because of her lack of strength, the snow girl looked sad. "Go back to the contract space. Dad will be fine." After Tangmao arranged the ice layer, he summoned Xiao Bei, rode on it, and comforted him while running away. After the snow girl said again, she went back to the contract space directly, looking at the ice layer behind him, although it was arranged by consuming all his ice magic power. But in front of the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, it can't stand a few hits. There is only one way now. Tangmao looked at the galaxy vein in his hand and thought to himself, "It seems that I have to use it. If he doesn't break through to a higher level now, there is really only one way to die." He doesn't want to die young. When Tangmao was looking for a place to break through, he heard a boom behind him. Then he saw that the ice layer that had just emerged was actually shattered by the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. Fuck. Although he had run a long way, the scene in front of him still made Tangmao completely stupid. He thought that, even if his ice wall couldn't stop it, it could still last for 10 minutes, right? But he didn't expect that it would break in just 1 minute. Question mark? This time, even if it was a chance to break through, Tang Mao had lost it. Just when he was about to go desperate, he saw several military mages suddenly stepping on the Sky Eagle. Then, in the sky, more than a dozen mid-level military mages released their ice, fire, thunder, wind and mid-level magic in an instant. More than a dozen bombardment energies bombarded the giant lizard pseudo-dragon directly. At the same time, a female military mage in a grey and white uniform came to his side without knowing when, and took Tang Mao to sit on the Sky Eagle and flew away. Although Tang Mao was very puzzled, how could these military mages come so quickly? But he still stretched out his hand and said, "Give me the blood leech on you." Jiang Yi was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Tang Mao stupidly, a little puzzled. How could Tang Mao know about the blood leech? Tang Mao looked at the dozen or so military magicians behind him, and was already half cold, and then said, "Don't talk nonsense, give it to me quickly, otherwise we will all die." Jiang Yi always felt that something was wrong, but after looking at the giant lizard pseudo-dragon behind him, and thinking about his mission this time, he still took out the blood sharp. Looking at her white palm, a special vessel as bright red as a drop of water was suspended there. The strange luster did not show that it belonged to any system, but Tang Mao and Jiang Yi knew very well that it contained enormous energy. The blood sharp in his hand looked like a drop of blood condensed when it fell, but it felt like glass. As long as he exerted force with both hands, he would crush it. Tang Mao did not rush to use it, but asked, "How did you get here so quickly to save me?" "When you set out, the Military Control Commission asked us to come to Jinlin City in advance. The purpose was to capture you and Demofan, but we didn't expect it." When Jiang Yi spoke, she looked at the giant lizard pseudo-dragon that was slaughtering her colleagues in the distance, and said with a heartbroken look, "I didn't expect that you would provoke the giant lizard pseudo-dragon just after you arrived." Tang Mao paused, and then said, "Where is Lu Nan? The military control master should be coming soon." Fuck. Hearing this, Tang Mao felt unhappy. He didn't expect that, because of his appearance, Lu Nan, a dog thief, would do this. In other words, those who escape now are afraid that they are in even greater danger. Tang Mao may not care about others, but Munijiao, the little wife he has cultivated for so long, no matter what, he can't watch her die. Then, Tang Mao directly crushed the blood in his hand. This move made Jiang Yi, who wanted to say something, stunned. The blood was broken into pieces, but a thick blood mist was lingering around Tang Mao in a regular pattern. At the same time, the Sky Eagles under the crotch of the two of them were filled with fear. The blood mist was entangled, and they were like living things, slowly examining something, just like a monster released from Pandora's box, thinking about whether the sacrifice this time was to their taste. Suddenly, all the blood mist madly drilled into Tang Mao's paws. The pupils changed drastically, and at the same time, his hair grew wildly, from black to pale, resembling the flowing and slender mane of the white tiger's Iobe. The bones were growing cracklingly, and the muscles were expanding evenly. Tang Mao seemed to be under some huge spiritual shock. He raised his head suddenly, and at the same time, the word king appeared on his forehead. Raw. Chapter 87 Demonic System Arrival. Thanks, Fu Sheng Ruo Jian Meng for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 969 for the reward. Thanks to Yuzibo Shuchen for the reward. Thanks to Shidan for the reward as shown in the picture. Thanks to Xinchen for the reward. Thanks for the monthly ticket. Due to the change in Tang Mao's momentum, the eagle under his feet flew to the ground in fear. After hearing a roar, it lay there with its wings trembling, not daring to move. Jiang Yi was looking at the changed Tang Mao in front of him. At this moment, he had tiger face patterns with blood spurting out. His entire facial bones were bulging outwards, becoming three-dimensional, and turned into an evil appearance of a combination of a human face and a tiger face. A pair of pupils that are completely different from those of humans, and pale hair that grows to the ankles is surprisingly upside down, showing the devilish nature. His bare feet stepped on the ground at some point, leaving heavy footprints of shattered and frozen footprints. It felt like the place he stepped on could be turned into an ice cellar at any time. There were countless chains and shackles all over his body, and lightning was moving around in a mess. It looked like shackles, but it was a field of destruction that destroyed everything. His body also grew up instantly. At the same time, the figure of the ice and snow girl appeared behind him. Jiang Yi looked at Tang Mao, who had a strong aura, stupidly, and didn't know what to say for a while. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon that had just slaughtered several military mages was trembling with fear at this moment. It seemed to have encountered absolute suppression. Without thinking, it turned around and flew away. The demons at the commander level can be said to have extremely high IQs. Moreover, their perception is also very strong. Tang Mao did not chase after it, but after the giant lizard pseudo-dragon left, under Jiang Yi's dazed eyes, he slowly transformed back to human form. Jiang Yi couldn't believe it. This was the only time in the demon experiment that the demonized mage could turn back to normal. In her heart, she couldn't help wondering, could it be that this experiment failed? But just now she really felt the power of Tang Mao. Even the giant lizard pseudo-dragon might not be able to look good in front of Tang Mao. But the feeling of destroying the world just a moment ago suddenly changed back. Moreover, he turned back to human form. Tang Mao ignored Jiang Yi, who was stunned there, but curiously peeked into his spiritual space. He saw that the ice system that was originally exhausted, and the summoning system and thunder system magic energy that were consumed, had been replenished at this time, and he originally had only 4 system nebulae, but now he has 5 systems. The latest magic system, it is full of strange bloody red, with dark purple, mixed with strange moonlight, and even painted with strange black light. In the end, if it has to be described as a color, it is blood ink. Tang Mao was full of doubts. Is this the demon system? Although he felt that, as long as he used the blood, he would definitely awaken the demon system, but no matter how he thought about it, that would have to be a matter after the higher level. But he didn't expect that, after using the blood, the demon system appeared directly in his magic system. Although it was very strange, when he used his mental power to suppress the demon power, it was real and changed back. But this demon power was only used for a moment, and it consumed all the remaining souls in the Killing Jade. Fortunately, his mental power was strong enough, otherwise, he might not be able to restore his original form. Moreover, Tang Mao could clearly feel that in addition to consuming some remaining souls, he did not suffer any other damage. On the contrary, his physical fitness was greatly enhanced by the appearance of the demon system. Tang Mao. While he was thinking, Jiang Yi beside him called out in confusion. After Tang Mao came back to his senses, he was too lazy to think too much. Anyway, he was not dead, and he got a demon system inexplicably, which was already very good. Looking at Jiang Yi in front of him, a murderous intent appeared in Tang Mao's eyes, and then he used space magic to push Jiang Yi away, and at the same time a thunderbolt fell. Boom boom, thunder descended, and hit Jiang Yi's body head on. This was a thunderbolt that caught people off guard. Jiang Yi had no time to react, and was killed in midair. Looking at the already dead Jiang Yi, Tang Mao murmured with a little emotion, although I'm very grateful to you, I'm sorry. Jiang Yi's fate had been decided as early as the moment she and Lunan set foot here. And the reason why Tang Mao wanted to deal with her in advance was just because this woman knew something she shouldn't know. Tang Mao's trump card was completely exposed in the Mingsu Academy challenge that year. Now that he accidentally got the demon system, it is naturally better for no one to know about this. It may still be a life-saving weapon in the future. After killing Jiang Yi and taking her coat, Tang Mao dressed up and rushed to the outskirts of Jinlin City. If I guessed correctly, that lunatic Lunan should be here soon. As for the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, after Tang Mao became a demon, his strength increased a lot. But a demon leader with a high-level bloodline is not so easy to kill. Since the power can be controlled, he naturally does not need to waste time with it. This is why the giant lizard pseudo-dragon suddenly ran away, and he did not pester it. At this time, Lu Zeng and others who had just walked out of Jinlin City also met Lunan and others who came. They were wearing uniforms, which were somewhat similar to the military mages in style, but there was a huge difference in color. There were more than 10 of them in total, and each of them had a snow-white giant eagle beside him. The giant eagle had a full chest and sharp eyes. Its wings were kept hanging down and almost hanging to the ground. If it was spread out at once, it would probably be 2 meters long. Military mage. Is it Lu Zeng's elder brother who came to rescue us? Seeing that the military mage really appeared, Xiaomingaiyu and Jingjing, who had just woken up and were sitting on Fan summoned wolf, immediately became excited. The two girls only heard a general idea when they woke up on the road and only knew that Lu Zheng's brother was coming to save their lives. As for other things, they didn't know. Xiaoman, who was beside Fan, looked at several military mages and wondered. Their clothes seemed to be a little different. The leader was a thick-browed man with a pipe on his thick lips. At this time, Lu Zheng said, "Brother, it's bad. There is a leader-level demon in this city, Tang Mao." Lu Zheng told the whole story. Lu Nan paused, and his eyes under his thick eyebrows scanned Lu Zheng and said, "Before you came, I had already sent my men here. That kid shouldn't die." In fact, Lu Nan was not sure. After all, if it was really a giant lizard pseudo-dragon, even he might not be able to deal with it. Some mid-level mages are probably in a much worse situation. Chapter 88 Lu Nan. Then Lu Nan looked at Lu Zheng and said, "Is that the person I'm looking for?" Lu Zheng glanced and stopped at where Fan was. Lu Nan nodded with satisfaction. He slowly raised his right hand and said to the team of mages in military uniforms behind him, "Kill all the strangers." Lu Nan's killing order made Lu Zheng stunned. He quickly put on a stiff smile and asked, "Brother, are you mistaken? They are all Mingzu and Imperial Capital trainees with me. That's why I want to kill them all. I don't want anyone to know about this," Lu Nan said in a very calm tone. At the same time as Lu Nan gave the order, several military mages behind him had already taken action. Luo Song, Shen Mingxiao, Zhu Daling, Xiana Feng and others in the front row were directly pierced through the body by the ice lock. "Be careful of the thundercloud." "No, this is a level 3 thunderbolt." No one knew who shouted, and then the thunder suddenly fell. A huge rumble sounded in the clear sky. Mu Ningxu, Mu Nujiro, Zhao Manian, Fan, Baitingting, Songza, Jingjing, and Peng Liang, led by the swift star wolf and defended by Zhao Manian, intercepted the first wave of bombardment. When they were safe, they found that the ghost-patterned violent wolf had disappeared as soon as the thunder appeared. The person it had just carried was blasted to a crisp by the third level thunderbolt, leaving him with no trace of life. There was not only one thunderbolt. After the first thunderbolt exploded, the second thunderbolt came one after another. Bang! The few people whose lives were uncertain turned into blood rain in an instant when the thunderbolt fell. It was impossible to distinguish between muscle and blood plasma. This time, there was really no trace of life. The forked lightning was still falling, and it was even more dense. It was probably because two thunder magicians were using thunderbolts at the same time. The thunderbolts danced wildly, blasting into the middle of their group one after another. The chosen ones of these schools all had some magic tools, and they could barely hold out for a while, but the power of the third level thunderbolt was extremely overbearing, one after another, and the power of each one could smash everyone's defensive magic tools. The first ones who couldn't hold on were Jingjing, Liao Mingxun, Songza, and Peng Liang. Fortunately, the first wave of thunder ended, and they didn't die immediately. "Who are you? Listen to me. I'm Liao Mingxun, the son of Liao Feng of the Imperial Capital Magic Association. If you kill me, I'll kill your whole family." Liao Mingxun screamed hysterically. There are always people who are already scared from the bottom of their hearts, and Liao Mingxun is like this. If there is another wave of bombing, he will definitely die. In fact, not only Liao Mingxun, but also others are now scared. "Oh." Lu Nan raised his eyebrows, and his eyes suddenly flashed with a brown light. With a flash of brown eyes, Liao Mingxun, who was still shouting wildly just now, suddenly stopped. He couldn't make any sound, his body became stiff, and he couldn't even move a finger. His body was covered by a layer of grey-white substance, which started at the toes and gradually spread to his whole body. Liao Mingxun was still struggling, but in a few seconds he turned into a grey-white statue. Exclamation mark. This kind of person should not be kept. Lu Nan took another puff of his pipe, as casually and disdainfully as if he had dealt with a handful of garbage. And just when he dealt with Liao Mingxun, he found out that his brother was actually captured by that kid Fan. And he suddenly found out that Fan actually possessed 4 systems. 4 systems. With 4 systems, he would be the most perfect test subject. At this moment, Lu Nan didn't even care about his brother's life or death. It was not until he heard Lu Zeng being approached by the flames and screaming in fear that he came back to his senses. "Tell me, what do you want?" Lu Nan said lightly. "It's you who want to do it. We have no grudges against you. Why do you want to kill us?" Mu Nijio's face was red with anger. When she asked this question, her body was still shaking slightly. It was obvious that she was also afraid, but she had to force herself to calm down because Tang Mao was not here and there was no other possibility except relying on herself. Now that Mo Fan had captured Lu Zeng, it could be said that this was their only life-saving straw. Lu Nan was not in a hurry because his men had surrounded them. It would be a good thing if Lu Zeng could survive. After all, he was his only brother. If not, he would kill them all to avoid unnecessary trouble. "Let's do this. One life for another. Boy, you choose who you want to let live." Lu Nan had no sincerity in negotiation. After all, for him now, Lu Zeng, this brother, was dispensable. Hearing this, Mo Fan hesitated. He didn't know what Lu Nan, this madman, meant. The most important thing was that until now, he couldn't figure out why this guy wanted to kill them. Did they encounter some secrets that they couldn't tell? Otherwise, why did he kill people to silence them? If so, saving people. Mo Fan felt that there was no hope at all. Change for me, him, her, she and the others. You can do whatever you want. After hesitating for a while, Mo Fan directly called out Muningsu, Munujiro, Zao Manayan, and said. This time, because he had no contact with Baitingting, Mo Fan did not call him. As for Munujiro, it was because of Tang Mao. After all, they were saved by Tang Mao, and he had a good relationship with Munujiro, so Mo Fan naturally thought that, if there was a chance, it would be better to save them. Baitingting and others were all stunned after Mo Fan finished calling out the names. Because in this way, they were almost sentenced to death. I said, only change one. Lu Nan's voice suddenly became cold. Then let me go. Mo Fan said without thinking. Ha 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 ha, what a funny boy. Lu Nan laughed suddenly. As for Zao Manan and others, although they felt aggrieved, they had no choice. After all, Mo Fan had tried his best. Lu Nan sneered and said, Mo Fan, to tell you the truth, everyone here can leave, except you. Because you are one of the best choices for my experiment. Mo Fan was stunned. One of the best choices? Lu Nan said with some regret. That's right. It's a pity. Otherwise the guy named Tang Mao would be the best choice. Mu Nijio said after hearing this. Then why don't you save him? Lu Nan snorted coldly and said, although he is a very good experimental subject, it is not worth fighting to the death with the giant lizard pseudo-dragon for him. P.S. I have to go to the wine table to compete today. The new year is about to end. Everyone should adjust the time difference as soon as possible. Finally, this book will be released on the starting point. Where are my friends? Question mark. Finally, I ask for monthly votes. Chapter 89, Ice Crystal Break Bow. Thanks, gave 6500 book coins. Thanks to Yalking Xiandao for the reward, Fuxi Chenan for the reward, and Lenking Gai for the reward. Thanks for the monthly ticket. Mu Nijio paused after hearing this, knowing that Tang Mao's last hope was gone. What's funny is that she didn't even know how she could spare the time in this situation. She cared about these things. And Mo Fan was even more puzzled. He had given up on the little princess, but the other party didn't let him live. Question mark? At this moment, Mo Fan felt a burst of extremely cold air behind him. He looked back with some doubts, and then he saw Munings's snow-white long hair fluttering in the air. Her beautiful face was majestic without anger, and her graceful figure was lightly suspended in a large area of ice crystal aura that condensed without any warning. Ice crystal bow. She instantly turned into the Ice Queen, and between her outstretched arms there was a magic bow that could turn the world into a snowy land. After feeling this terrifying momentum, Mo Fan was stunned. Domain. Soul level ice species. This is impossible. This is impossible. Lu Nan's eyes widened, and he roared hysterically. The same soul level ice species, coupled with the ice crystal bow's complete explosion of power that is not inferior to the power of high level magic. This arrow still has a terrifying lethality to Lu Nan and his group. The domain of the soul level ice species enveloped the group of military mages. All military mages, including Lunarn, were corroded by the cold. The intermediate magic star tracks were arranged very slowly, and even Lunarn's high-level magic was affected. After the arrow was fired, Lunarn and several members of his military mage troops were instantly turned into ice sculptures. Even those who were not cold resistant were directly shattered on the spot. Muningsu felt a little unconscious, but she chose to grit her teeth and endure it. There was no way. At this moment, she didn't want to give her life to anyone. Run quickly, I can't control him for long. Hearing this, the few people who were still alive chose to flee. Peng Liang took Song Zia away, while Jingjing chose to evacuate with Baiting Ting. The last 4 people left were Munijiro, Muningsu, Zhao Manan and Emofan. Zhao Manan actually wanted to escape alone, but he was saved by the goddess after all, so he really couldn't leave them alone. Emofan knew that the other party was targeting him, so he decided to leave alone. As for Muningsu, who was injured, he could only rely on Zhao Manan and Munijiro. It's not that he wanted to lead the other party away for them, because of his conscience, but Emofan knew that, if he didn't do so, everyone would die. After all, Lunarn's target was always himself. Let's separate. Their target is me. If we can get out alive, we must make this lunatic pay the price. After Emofan left a sentence, he summoned the Star Wolf and left here quickly. Munijiro and Zhao Manan took Muningsu and fled to the other side. Not long after everyone fled, the ice crystals that sparkled in the morning light finally cracked. The first to break free from the ice crystals was Lunarn of the Military Control Commission. He had obviously put a layer of protection on himself. Although these ice crystals were powerful, they were still not strong enough to hurt a high-level mage like him. Soon after he broke free, some of his men woke up one after another. After several men woke up, Lunarn ordered, "You guys, be responsible for catching that kid, and the rest of you follow me." There were 6 men left in total. Lunarn took 2 to chase Muningsu and the other 3, while the other 4 were responsible for chasing Emofan. It's not that he didn't want to chase Emofan first, but Lunarn was worried that the other party would hide in the shadow system. In that case, it would be difficult to find him. So, judging from their conversation, when they just parted, they should have a good relationship. In that case, it was a good choice for him to naturally choose to catch them. After running for a while, Muningsu felt that her physical strength had become extremely weak. She said to Zhao Manan and Munijiro, who had led her to run for a distance, "Put me down and run on your own. My magic power will not be restored in a short time. If you take me with you, all 3 of us will die." Although she didn't want to die, she had no choice. The opponent was a high-level mage, and although her arrow was very strong, it might not hurt him at all. After all, when the arrow was shot, Muningsu clearly felt that Lunarn also used magic. The opponent was an earth mage, and if he was prepared, her attack could still be resisted. She gave them the last chance to escape, and they also led her to run for a distance. They separated here, and the rest of the matter could only be left to fate. Zhao Manan said with a righteous look, "Goddess Mu, don't say that. It was you who shot the arrow and gave us a chance to survive. How could we leave you alone now?" In his opinion, the opponent's target was Emofan, so even if someone was chasing them, it should not be Lunarn. As long as it was not Lunarn, it would not be difficult for Zhao Manan and Munijiro to deal with it with their trump cards. Zhao Manan naturally couldn't miss such a good opportunity to win the favor of the goddess. Munijiro couldn't just leave Muningsu alone. After all, without her arrow, they might have died now. Just as Zhao Manan finished speaking, a sky eagle appeared in the sky. A voice came from the sky eagle. "Haha, very good, then you can stay together." Hearing this, the 3 of them were stunned. Especially Zhao Manan. At this moment, his heart was full of alpacas. It was agreed that Emofan was the main experimental subject. Didn't the fool Lunarn see that Emofan was running to the deserted city? Why did he come to them? Besides, didn't he just want to win the favor of the goddess in case he got lucky in the future? Why couldn't he fulfill his wish properly? "You go, I'll stop him." Looking at Lunarn in the sky, Munijiro said. When Zhao Manan heard this, without saying a word, he thought about taking Muningsu away. but unfortunately, Lunine was faster and stood in front of them. Zaomanine felt like he was screwed, and he even wanted to hand over the two women to save his life. Of course, this thought only lasted for a moment. After all, he was not so shameless. Stop me? Just you? Lunine looked at Munigio, who wanted to draw a star map, and said in a calm voice. At the same time, he stepped on the ground, and the three of them fell directly to the ground. Looking at the three people falling to the ground, Lunine said with a little madness, "You three are lucky, you don't have to die now. Hahaha. P.S. This is the bonus for last night's reward. Chapter 90 Fight. Thanks, President of the Funny Man, for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 294 for the reward of 1500 book coins. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 610 for the reward of 500 book coins. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 562 for the reward of 1500 book coins. Thanks to StarCraft Yan Long for the reward of 10,000 book coins. Big brother, can't you give me a reward on Gideon? You can also give me some monthly tickets. Thanks, Laote, for the monthly ticket. After saying that, he waved his hand and signaled the two men who came with him to take down the three people. Muningsu did not faint because she used the ice crystal breaking bow once, but her strength was only 1/10 of what it was. Zaomanine was a tortoise shell mage, and his attack power was weak. Munigio did have a means of attack, but in front of Lunine, her means of attack had no effect at all. It can be said that the three of them had no strength to resist. Just when Lunine's two men were about to capture the three of them, a tiger roar came out. Then, everyone saw an advanced white tiger jump out. This white tiger was naturally Xiaobei. Although it had been staying in the dimensional space, it also gained a lot of benefits during the last trip to Xianshan. It can be said that, as long as it finds a suitable beast soul, it can advance. Seeing the white tiger that suddenly appeared, Lunine and the other two were all stunned. Munigio said excitedly, "Xiaobei?" Xiaobei looked back at her, and then looked at Lunine and the other two with caution. Zaomanine and Muningsu looked at the excited Munigio with doubts, and then Zaomanine asked, "Do you know it?" Munigio nodded and replied, "This is Tangmao's dimensional summon." Hearing this, Lunine frowned and looked around. At this time, Tangmao came out of the woods and said in a calm voice, "Don't look for it, I'm here." Tangmao. The moment they saw Tangmao, Zaomanine and Muningsu breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Although they didn't know how Tangmao survived, since he was fine, it meant that the three of them were saved. Lunine looked at Tangmao in shock and said, "You're not dead. How could a giant lizard pseudo-dragon kill me?" Lunine naturally didn't believe what Tangmao said, especially when he saw the clothes he was wearing. He said coldly, "Did my men save you?" Tangmao nodded and praised, "You're really stupid." Hahaha. Hearing this, Lunine was not angry, but laughed wildly. HMPH, Kit, it's really good that you're not dead. After all, you are my best experimental subject. Tangmao mocked, "Dreams have everything." The moment he finished speaking, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and then a bolt of lightning struck Lunine and the other two. At the same time, Xiaobei threw Munigio, Muningsu and Zaomanine on his back and left. Lunine didn't care about them either. After all, the power of Tangmao's thunder was even greater than the power of the arrow just now. Eye of the Rock Demon. Brilliant star tracks appeared around him, densely interweaving like the beautiful star lines in the sky. The star tracks intertwined into a pattern. The pattern was dazzling and dazzling, but one after another, and it turned out to be a magnificent and stunning constellation around Lunine. The brown constellation was extremely complex, but Lunine arranged, drew, and constructed it very skillfully. Petrification. Who would have thought that the thunder that Tangmao struck down would be petrified by Lunine's attack? After blocking Tangmao's thunder attack, the grey-white petrification power spread towards Tangmao. Although he was a test subject, he didn't want to hurt him, but if he didn't hurt him, it would be impossible for him to be an experiment for him. Snow Girl Fusion. At the moment, when the grey-white elemental power attacked, Tangmao summoned the Snow Girl. With his own ice power, it was not certain that he could withstand the petrification power of Lunine, the madman. Absolute Zero. The moment the domain was cast, the temperature around Tangmao dropped instantly. Even the grey-white petrified elemental force was slowed down. Ice crystal defense. Then, Tangmao once again cast the defensive ice wall that blocked the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. Although this ice wall did not cause much damage to the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. However, it was not a big problem to deal with Lunan. His attacks were all frozen into ice cubes, and then they broke on the ground like hail. Seeing this scene, Lunan's eyes were full of shock. After all, Tangmao's strength was only mid-level, but he could actually block his high-level magic. The three people on Xiaobei's body were also shocked. Especially Muningsu, she herself was already a genius that was rare in a century. However, the power of her major in ice magic was not as good as Tangmao's minor. Lunan saw that the attack had no effect, and then he suddenly turned a military arm guard on his wrist. As the arm guard turned, brown magic light immediately shone, quickly covering Lunan's whole body. Then Lunan looked at Tangmao with some irritability and said coldly, "This is called the petrification arm, which can greatly enhance the petrification effect of my petrification pupil. I want to see if you can withstand it." Petrification magic weapon. This kind of magic weapon is extremely rare, and it is tailor-made for the effects of some special magic. Lunan spent a lot of money to get it, but he didn't expect that this kind of thing would be used to deal with mid-level mages one day. Lunan's petrification was indeed enhanced a lot with the auxiliary training of magic weapons. However, there was still no actual damage to Tangmao. His ice wall had the bonus of the snow girl and the domain, and its defense was much stronger than the thunder attack power. Raw. However, Tangmao could resist it, but Xiaobei couldn't. At the moment, when the grey-white elemental power began to spread, Xiaobei hurriedly called for help. However, this little brain tiger was not stupid either, and ran behind Tangmao at the same time. Tangmao looked at the people on Xiaobei's back and said, "Activate your own defensive magic tools." Zhao Manan and Munigio did as they were told, and Zhao Manan also used his various shield skills. After he did everything, Tangmao also released the power of the ice domain to the maximum. Two elemental powers, one white and one blue, burst out directly in the jungle. The nearby trees either turned into ice sculptures or turned into lime and dispersed. Behind Tangmao, Muningsu, who was so weak that she was about to faint, actually felt her body recovering rapidly when Tangmao's ice power burst out to the maximum. Muningsu looked at the figure in front of her stupidly, her heart full of confusion. However, when the power recovered to its peak, Muningsu stood up. PS. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. Chapter 91 Killing Lunan. Thanks, handsome young master, for the reward. Thanks for the reward with the arrival of the stars. Thanks for the reward with 66 book coins from Soul of the Heart. Thanks for the reward with 588 from Civilization Era. Thanks for the reward with 761 from the book Friend with the last number. Thanks for the reward with 3000 book coins from the book Friend with the last number 814. Thanks for the monthly ticket for the extra chapter. Although she didn't understand how Tangmao's domain power could heal her, since she had the strength to fight, Muningsu naturally wouldn't choose to sit idly by. Feeling that her strength had returned to its peak, Muningsu stretched out her right hand and opened the mark in her soul again. The ice crystal dust formed a vortex around her, swirling around Muningsu, and quickly turned into a beautiful crystal longbow standing in front of Muningsu. When they saw the longbow, both Munigio and Zhao Manan were dumbfounded. Munigio hurriedly said, "Muningsu, what are you doing? If you use it once, you will die." Although Zhao Manan thought that Muningsu could save them if she took action again. However, thinking of Muningsu's weak appearance just now, Zhao Manan also persuaded, "Goddess Mu, Tangmao can bear it, don't do anything stupid." Muningsu did not respond to the two of them after hearing this. It was not that she was aloof, but she could not be distracted at the moment. The ice crystal longbow was almost attached to Xiaobei's body, like a crane spreading its wings to soar into the sky. The entire bow was made of frost crystals, which was exquisite and full of murderous aura because of the power of natural cold. Fortunately, Xiaobei was adapted to the ice attribute, otherwise, it would have been frozen and rolled back to the dimension. The beautiful longbow was held firmly by Muningsu, and countless ice crystal dust in the air was shaping the arrow body. First, the front end of the arrow was sharp and pointed, followed by the long and straight arrow body, which was completely condensed from ice crystal dust, and finally the ice crystal tail wing, which appeared out of thin air between Muningsu's stretched index finger and middle finger. After feeling the powerful ice attribute behind them, Tangmao and Lunan, who were fighting hard, were stunned. And at the moment when the two noticed it, the arrow whizzed past without any arc. The huge icy breath turned into a sudden blizzard, following the tail of the arrow that was flying past, which looked so shocking. But even though the arrow passed in front of Tangmao, he was not hurt at all. However, the power of his own ice domain seemed to be taken away. Swish! When the powerful arrow pierced through, Lunan's face was distorted. He roared with a ferocious face. "No, it's impossible. You are just a group of intermediate mages. How can you control this kind of power?" Exclamation mark. No. But no matter how much he didn't believe it, the ice crystal arrow still pierced his petrified magic weapon accurately. At that moment, the ice crystal of the arrow exploded, and all the objects there were frozen in the blink of an eye, with the position where the ice crystal arrow pierced as the center of the circle. Pa. The frozen ring exploded, and the speed of the ice crystal's covering was even more amazing. Lunan's petrified magic weapon and his arm were shattered in just a moment. The petrified power dissipated instantly when his arm broke. At the same time, the snow girl in Tangmao's body also fell out. But Tangmao didn't care about her. After all, now was the best time to deal with Lunan. Zizaro, rumble, or thunder sounded, and Tangmao rushed to Lunan in a few steps. Then the thunder on his hand was all over, and when he punched, it turned into a sharp blade and pierced through Lunan's chest with a puff sound. Electric blade. Zilala. At the moment of piercing through Lunan's body, the thunder raged in his body. The thunder that jumped up and down, in the blink of an eye, made Lunan burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. The two military mages behind him were even worse. After the electric blade pierced through his body, the power was not only poured into his body, but also exploded behind him with the electric blade. Behind Lunan, it was like a disaster area. Purple sky domain. But Tangmao had no intention of letting the two go, and he added a domain fiercely. The area that was originally thunderous, under the addition of the domain, was like an ordinary intermediate level 3 magic bombardment. Although it was an ordinary intermediate level 3 magic, the power of the continuous bombardment was so strong that even a higher level magician could not withstand it, let alone two intermediate level military magicians. Even though they were well trained, in front of the absolute destructive power, they were like grasshoppers in autumn. After jumping for a while, they were completely left behind. After dealing with the three people, Tangmao breathed a sigh of relief. He looked behind him and saw that Muningsu had fainted. As for Zao Manan and Munijiro, they looked at this sight like idiots. "Are you two okay?" Tangmao took a break, then walked towards them and asked. The two shook their heads at the same time and said, "No, it's okay." After responding to Tangmao, Munijiro seemed to have thought of something. Looking at the cold beauty who had fainted, she hurriedly shouted, "Muningsu." Zao Manan also looked over when he heard the voice, only to see that Muningsu had completely fainted at this moment. Muningsu was trying to save them after all, so the two really didn't want her to get into trouble. After Tangmao came over, he checked and found that Muningsu's magic power seemed to have been drained out at this moment. Thinking of the sudden rise of this woman just now, and the fact that his power had been drained, Tangmao condensed the power of ice in his hands. Tangmao's ice-cold power was extremely powerful. The moment it condensed, the temperature here dropped a lot. However, it seemed that he had some illusions. Muningsu didn't seem to be getting better. After thinking about it, Tangmao used the power of the domain. In an instant, the temperature around them dropped rapidly. The cold feeling made Munijiro and Zao Manan shiver with cold. Zao Manan hugged his arms and trembled as he said, "Brother, even if Goddess Mu is fine, she will be frozen into an ice sculpture by you. Let's not talk about whether Muningsu can withstand it or not. At least with his current physical strength, he really can't withstand it. Not to mention Zao Manan can't stand it. Munijiro feels like she is about to turn into an ice cube." Tang Mao was watching the changes in Muningsu. Only when he released his domain did her complexion change slightly. Moreover, Tang Mao clearly felt that she wanted to absorb his ice attribute power. However, Tang Mao did not give it to her. After all, this place is not absolutely safe. Moreover, the main problem is that the two behind him can't withstand it either. Then Tang Mao withdrew the power of the domain, looked at the two people and said, "Let's find a place to stay first. I think I can save her." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 92 Treatment. Thanks, Jin Yeziushin for the reward. Thanks to Yun Yi for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 603 for the reward of 1500 book coins. Thanks to Cheyenne Bing Yeziuxin for the reward. Thanks for the monthly ticket. Riding Zio Bay, he brought the three of them to a dilapidated church on the outskirts of Jinlin City. After arriving at the place, Tang Mao took Zio Bei back to the dimensional space, hugged Muningsu, and looked at Munigio and the others and said, "She not only consumes magic energy when using that bow, but also consumes her mental energy. She is extremely weak now, but it seems that my ice field can heal her. You two stay outside, and I will help her heal." Hearing this, the two looked at Tang Mao with suspicion at the same time. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Being stared at by the two like this, Tang Mao always felt weird and said a little unhappy. Zhao Manan said with dissatisfaction, "Brother, if you want to save people, why do you let us stay outside?" In his opinion, Tang Mao was pretending to save people. I'm afraid he was just thinking about it. Of course, he is not a bad person, but it is a dark and windy month. What should we do if there are demons? Zhao Manan always feels insecure when he is not with Tang Mao, especially when there is not much magic energy like this. Munigio is completely unconvinced. Tang Mao really wants to treat Muningsu. Just a SP like him will obediently save people. Impossible. Moreover, as Zhao Manan said, well, let them stay outside to save people. However, Zhao Manan has already asked, so she will naturally not say anything else. She just stared at Tang Mao eagerly, as if she was looking at a heartless man. Hearing this, Tang Mao shrugged and said, "To save her, I need to release my domain. If you two are not afraid of being frozen into ice sculptures, come in together." Then, he hugged Muningsu's delicate body and walked into the church, without even looking at the two of them, as if you can come in if you want. Zhao Manan and Munigio were naturally ready to enter, but as soon as they took a step in, they felt that the temperature here dropped rapidly. And through the door, they happened to see where Tang Mao was gathering the power of ice attribute. Muningsu lay on the ground like a sleeping beauty. When the surroundings were covered with ice, Muningsu's pale face looked better. His after Zhao Manan felt the icy cold and saw the changes in Muningsu, he finally understood. Tang Mao really wanted to save people, and it was not as dirty as he thought. Not letting them in was indeed for their own good. Then, Zhao Manan obediently retreated, and only felt a little better after retreating a few steps from the church. After Zhao Manan left, Munigio blushed and said, "I'm sorry, Tang Mao naturally knew what Munigio wanted to say, and he was very considerate and said, "It's okay, go wait outside. Call me if there is any danger." Munigio nodded and left the church with her hips twisted. She was actually quite strange. Although Tang Mao saved her and was able to talk to her about love, she was not like this before, right? But Munigio had forgotten that when she was rescued during the day, Tang Mao's figure instantly became much larger in her heart. It's just that she herself didn't know it yet. After Munigio and Zhao Manan left, Tang Mao's fake tricks also ended instantly. His hands couldn't help coughing. When he was about to tidy up Muningsu's long hair, he saw that, although the messy black hair covered her cheeks, she was very charming. I remember that, when we just met, she still had a strong aura of a fierce queen. I didn't expect that she would have a different taste after fainting and removing her disguise. After receiving the baptism of the domain, the appearance of the little woman emerged, extremely weak, and was simply lovable. Tang Mao looked at it and couldn't help but stretch her muscles and bones. Of course, he didn't go too far, just testing the sense of reality. Don't say, what I saw that day was not fake at all. But he didn't go too far. After all, taking advantage of someone's misfortune is not something a warm man like him would do. Most importantly, Tang Mao was very curious about why Mu Ningxu could absorb the power of his domain to heal herself. After observing for a while, Tang Mao did not get any answers, except that she recovered well. The release of the domain also consumed Tang Mao's energy. Of course, if it weren't for the girl in front of him, who was so beautiful and graceful, he really wouldn't have the urge to sacrifice himself to save her. Under the rapid consumption of magic energy, Tang Mao's face turned slightly pale. The consumption of this encouragement was no less than that of discussing postures with Tang Yu. Oh, it seemed that Tang Mao's domain power played a role, and the fainted Mu Ningxu finally woke up. When she opened her eyes and climbed up, the first thing she saw was the thick ice layer around her and the pale Tang Mao there, and she was slightly stunned. Mu Ningxu slowly recalled what happened before she fainted. A horrifying devilish face appeared in her mind. She recovered for some unknown reason. Then she used all her strength to shoot the last arrow. Then she lost her memory. Just when she wanted to get up, Tang Mao said in a slightly cold voice, "Don't move." She also knew that Tang Mao was saving her, so she just lay there again. Then she looked at the pale Tang Mao again, feeling a little guilty, and said, "Are you okay? I'm recovered and can stop now. With your current strength, you shouldn't be able to use that bow, but you used it twice in one day. If it weren't for my domain ability that happened to save you, you would have turned into an ice sculpture now." Hearing this, Mu Ningxu fell silent. She knew that Tang Mao was not exaggerating. After all, when she used it for the first time, she already felt as if her body had been severely frostbitten. And the second time she used it, it was actually completely with the help of Tang Mao's domain. But, Tang Mao's domain, especially the one that she could mobilize at will, that was when Tang Mao was dealing with Lunayan. Otherwise, Mu Ningxu would have been dead after shooting that arrow. While Mu Ningxu was thinking, the freezing power around her dissipated instantly. When she reacted, she saw that Tang Mao had been frozen to the ground. Mu Ningxu's body was a little soft, but she recovered a little after all, crawled up and came to Tang Mao's side. When her jade hand touched Tang Mao's hand, she felt as if her little hand would freeze at any time. Mu Ningxu hurriedly helped Tang Mao up, leaned against her arms, and asked worriedly, Tang Mao, are you okay? P.S. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. In addition, a final reminder, you who look at the original owner have gone to the wrong place. Chapter 93 Awakening. When leaning on this soft body, Tang Mao had recovered. Just now, he had just exhausted his ice magic. And now he had actually recovered, but this soft human flesh chair, how comfortable is it? So he didn't intend to move, and there was only one feeling in his heart. Cool. Tang Mao was happy, but poor Mu Ningxu was scared. She looked at Tang Mao with a worried look on her face, and kept asking, are you okay? Apart from that, she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what she could do. Mu Ningxu was not the kind of person who would fall in love with others for a little favor, but she was still very moved by the full efforts of a person she had just met. Because of this, she didn't want Tang Mao to get into trouble. After all, if Tang Mao really got into trouble to save her, wouldn't she feel guilty for the rest of her life? And just when she didn't know what to do, Tang Mao suddenly sat up. This was so sudden that Mu Ningxu couldn't even react. How are you? She didn't know what else she could do except asking. Tang Mao sat cross-legged there, as if he was cultivating immortals. However, he didn't have the air of an immortal. He responded in a weak voice, I'm fine. I just consumed a lot of magic energy. Mu Ningxu was relieved when she heard that. At the same time, the two people outside also came in. That's right, it was because he noticed the moment when Mu Ningxiao and Zhao Manan came in. Tang Mao had to leave Mu Ningxu's soft body. After all, Mu Ningxiao's eyes had changed towards her. In this case, he naturally couldn't be too ambiguous with Mu Ningxu. Mu Ningxiao was also a strong character, and it was not easy to break her heart. Mu Ningxu couldn't eat it now, so he naturally wouldn't do such a thankless thing to hurt himself. Mu Ningxiao and Zhao Manan came in. and saw that Muningsu had woken up and asked her how she was. Muningsu also shook her head and replied, "I'm fine, but Tangmao." Seeing her worried look, Munigyo also came to Tangmao's side and asked with concern, "Tangmao, are you okay?" "It's okay, it's just that the energy consumption is a bit large. Let me meditate for a while and I'll be fine." Munigyo breathed a sigh of relief, and then the three of them walked out together. It seemed that they wanted Tangmao to recover quietly. Noticing that the three people left, Tangmao thought in his heart, elastic, soft, and the right size. It's perfect. Outside the church, after Munigyo finished explaining the whole story, Muningsu said with emotion, "I didn't expect that we could survive." "Yes." Munigyo also nodded in agreement, and then looked at the church again. "If someone had told me before that a mid-level mage could beat a high-level mage, I would have found it hard to believe in my life. But he really did it. Tangmao is really a pervert. I just don't know how Emo-fan and the others are doing. The first outdoor training. Oh, forget it. Let's not talk about it." Zaomanan obviously didn't want to recall it anymore. In fact, he was full of hatred for the Luzeng brothers. It was that they died. Otherwise, Zaomanan would definitely ask the family's power to cut Lunayan and the others into pieces. Muningsu did remember Emo-fan's story, but the person who saved her was still recuperating in there. How could she think of anything else? Moreover, Emo-fan was just a favorite playmate in her childhood. Although she had some different opinions about him when she returned to Bo City that time. But Muningsu, who had never been emotional, had always known that she had no choice. Marriage was never something she could choose. And looking at the two extremely beautiful goddesses, looking into the church from time to time, Zaomanan said, "They are all blind." After all, a man as handsome as him could not get the slightest attention. Zaomanan, who was adept at love affairs, how could he not see that Munigyo had completely fallen, and Muningsu might be more touched? As long as Tangmao worked hard and licked Muningsu, maybe it would not be impossible to go further. Suddenly, he was a little puzzled because Zaomanan felt that Tangmao would be very embarrassed about Munigyo and Muningsu, right? It seemed that he would lose half his heart if he chose anyone. After thinking for a moment, Zaomanan slapped his head and thought, "I'm not worrying about it. Whoever they choose, there is no hope for the rest." Crack at this time, Tangmao pushed open the door of the church and walked out. After seeing Tangmao come out, Muningsu and the other two women stood up at the same time. Then he came to him immediately. Seeing Tangmao's complexion recover, Muningsu bowed slightly and said, "Tangmao, thank you. Before you reach a high level, it's better to use your bow less." When Tangmao was treating her just now, he had already discovered that her bow had left her own domain power. This was not done by him, but her bow absorbed it by itself. Tangmao didn't know what would happen. After thinking for a while, he said, "Your bow has absorbed a lot of my domain power, and I don't know why. I also tried to extract them, but I couldn't do it. So if you use this bow in the future, I don't know what the consequences will be." Muningsu was stunned. You know, this ice crystal bow is her biggest trump card. If it doesn't work, seeing her expression change, Tangmao sighed slightly and said, "You should be able to use it, but the premise is that I'm present. This way you will be fine. As for how to solve it, I don't know yet. Although it is very troublesome, at least it is not useless." Muningsu breathed a sigh of relief and then said, "I know. Thank you." After that, Muningsu walked into the church, as if she wanted to calm down. They didn't care, and Munigyo gave Tangmao a hug the moment Muningsu entered the church and the moment he turned around. "Thank you, Bo." She was very grateful to Tangmao and wanted to give him a deep hug of thanks. But she really didn't mean anything else. But she didn't expect that Tangmao, this bastard, would kiss her. Immediately, Munigyo pushed Tangmao away and said in shame and anger, "Rogue." Tangmao smiled and leaned forward and said, "Gio, you rushed over like this. I thought you were going to." Munigyo stretched out her hand to push him away again and spat lightly, "Go to hell." Zaomanan next to him said, "Damn it. Is it so open to abuse dogs? Question mark. PS. Please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 94. Pushing the limits. Nijio was attacked on the lips, and she was extremely shy, especially with Zeomanan present. She wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. Seeing the two pink clouds floating on Nijio's cheeks, she looked so beautiful that Tangmao wanted to have a deep discussion with her. However, this kind of thing was obviously impossible. After all, Zeomanan, the big light bulb, had no intention of avoiding it. With a dead fish-eye expression, he squatted there and looked at Tangmao and Nijio. He seemed to be saying that as long as he didn't feel embarrassed, then Tangmao and Nijio would be embarrassed. Needless to say, this guy succeeded. Nijio hid in the church shyly. Before leaving, he reminded the two of them they live inside. Tangmao and Zeomanan will keep watch outside. Zeomanan refused, but after thinking of the power of Muningsu's arrow, he still chose the job of keeping watch. Nijio stayed in for a while before coming out with Muningsu. It's nothing. The food is all at Nijio's place. If she doesn't come out, Tangmao and Zeomanan will have to starve tonight. Seeing the two women put down the food and prepare to leave, Tangmao said, "Let's go together. It's dark inside. What's the point of staying there? We won't eat you too." Nijio's mouth twitched slightly. Not to mention, she was really afraid that Tangmao would do something. Muningsu sat down surprisingly. Seeing Muningsu sitting next to him, Tangmao was a little puzzled and thought, could it be that this girl fell in love with me because I saved her once? Just when Tangmao was narcissistic, Muningsu asked, "Tangmao, why can your domain power heal me?" Tangmao, who had already recalled the soft and bouncy feeling, paused after hearing this. Looking at Muningsu, he subconsciously said, "That's it? Muningsu. Munijio." Zeomanan also looked at Tangmao in confusion, not understanding what this meant. Seeing the three people staring at him with confusion, Tangmao came back to his senses. She smiled and said, "Sorry, I was just thinking about something." "What did you say?" Although Muningsu felt that this was a bit fake, she didn't care. Instead, she continued, "I want to know why your domain can heal me." "Do you know?" "I don't know." Tangmao shook his head. "I also found out when you released that arrow." After getting Tangmao's answer, Muningsu felt a little disappointed. In fact, the main reason why she could sit here was just to understand this matter. It was not as much as Tangmao thought. "Well, anyway, thank you. I'm done. Enjoy your meal," Muningsu said, stood up, and walked into the church. Tangmao recalled a wave of memories when she saw the graceful figure. Then Tangmao stretched out his big hand to Munijio. Munijio, who was still chewing bread, was stunned when she noticed it. She glanced at Zeomanan and saw that he was concentrating on eating. Then she turned her head and glared at Tangmao with her beautiful eyes. She was kissed just now because she wasn't paying attention, so that was fine. But now this dead man is taking advantage of her so openly. Seeing Munijio looking over, Tangmao said, as if nothing had happened, "What's wrong, Jiao?" You seeing his innocent look, Munijio wanted to get up and leave immediately, but Tangmao suddenly shouted, "Zeomanan, did you send a message for help?" Munijio didn't dare to move immediately. After all, Tangmao's claws didn't mean to leave her at all. If she got up, wouldn't Zeomanan know about it? In fact, seeing Zeomanan was at most a little envious, but Munijio felt that she would be laughed at, so she sat down obediently. Zeomanan shrugged and said, "I sent it, but I sent it at the place where I met Lunan before. I don't know if they can find it." In fact, he didn't care whether there was support or not. After all, with Tangmao, the pervert, following him, as long as they didn't break into the demon's lair, there would be no danger. Oh, Tangmao didn't even look at him. After responding, he moved his butt and got closer to Munijio. He whispered, "Jiao, sit for a while. It's still early." Munijio blushed at Tangmao's proximity and tilted her head to the side in discomfort. "Then take your hand away." Tangmao shook his head and replied, "How can I do that? The ground is cold. I'll feel bad if you get cold." But as soon as he finished speaking, Tangmao kissed Munijio's neck again. Zeomanan. Before Munijio could get mad, Tangmao asked again, "How is your magic power recovering?" Zao Manan was stunned. He just thought there was a demon. After looking up at Tang Mao and Munigio sitting together, he said unhappily, "Are you sick?" He had been resting for a long time, so his magic power must have recovered. Is there any need to ask? After cursing, Zao Manan stood up and wanted to walk outside. If Zao Manan left now, wouldn't Munigio run away immediately? Tang Mao threatened her immediately. There might be general level monsters in this forest. Don't go too far, or you will become a monster's food and I won't be able to save you. Hearing this, Zao Manan took his foot back and cursed, "Damn it. I'm going to break up with you when I get back. Nothing has gone well since I met you." Zao Manan's nagging wife mode was directly ignored by Tang Mao. Munigio didn't even turn her head at this moment. Her red eyes were burning, and she stared at Tang Mao with grievance. There was even a faint mist. Tang Mao was stunned and quickly took back his hand and then wanted to wipe the moisture from her eyes and said, "It's just a joke. Don't cry. Don't cry, damn hooligan." Munigio grabbed Tang Mao's hand, then opened her mouth and bit it viciously. His feeling the fierceness of the little tiger's teeth, Tang Mao couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, but didn't pull his hand out. Enduring the pain, he wiped Munigio's tears with his other hand, and then comforted her. "It's my fault, Gio. Don't cry. Don't cry." After all, he couldn't promise her a future now, and Tang Mao felt that he was indeed a bit too much by touching her like this. Hearing this, Munigio let go of the arm in her mouth and looked up at Tang Mao pitifully. "See if you dare to bully me in the future." In fact, she wanted to ask Tang Mao if he really liked her, but she couldn't ask this question. After all, she didn't have the right to choose her spouse, especially when she knew that Tang Mao would not marry into her family. Even though Tang Mao was very dazzling now, it was impossible for the two of them to be together. Thanks, Yumeng's difference of 588 book coins for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 704 for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 163 for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 939 for the reward of 600 book coins. Thanks to Shidan for the reward as shown in the picture. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 187 for the reward of 1500 book coins. Thanks to Mo Shang for the reward. Thanks to the president of the funny people for the reward. Thanks to Cheng for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 286 for the reward. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 234 for the reward. Thanks to QDMWJ for the reward of 520 book coins. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 471 for the reward. Thanks for the monthly ticket. Chapter 95 Barrier. Seeing Munigio forcibly pretending her feelings, Tang Mao had an impulse to really make a promise to her. But when he thought of Tang Yu, the impulse faded. If Munigio knew that he already had a girlfriend, she would probably cut him into pieces with a wind plate for what he did today. Of course, in his heart, whether it was a canary, a wife, or a lover, they all had the same weight. Verbal promises always felt a bit hypocritical. So, until Munigio got up and left, Tang Mao didn't say a word. Zao Manan, who was standing by, was a little bored. After seeing Munigio leave, he came over and gossiped. "Tang Mao, what are you thinking? Do you like Munigio or Muningsu?" Tang Mao paused, then looked at Zao Manan and said, "Compared to them, I still like you more." Zao Manan was stunned. Without saying anything, he jumped up and took a few steps back and said, "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Why are you scaring me?" Seeing that Tang Mao didn't mean to respond, Zao Manan didn't bother to bother her. Then he sat down by the fire and said, "I'll rest in the first half of the night, and I'll take over in the second half of the night. You rest." Looking at Zao Manan who was half lying there resting, Tang Mao thought to himself, "Why do I have to choose one of the two? As long as I have strong strength and great power, why don't I have both?" After muttering to himself, Tang Mao began to meditate. With his mental strength, if there was any danger, he would naturally react immediately. There was no need to stare at it stupidly. After treating Muningsu, Tang Mao suddenly discovered something. That is, after he had an additional demon, his magic power recovery speed was twice as fast. The ice magic power that had been exhausted before had recovered nearly half at this time. Moreover, the wound on his arm that had just been bitten began to recover. Tang Mao was very grateful to Lunayan, the delivery man. When the shift changed in the middle of the night, Zhao Manan woke up on time and took over. Tang Mao did not hesitate and walked directly into the church. Zhao Manan was stunned. Then he said, "I said, the two girls are resting inside. What are you doing in there?" Tang Mao was stunned, then said, "They are all wearing clothes. What are you afraid of? It's so cold outside, how can you rest well?" Zhao Manan opened his mouth, but for a moment he didn't know how to refute. Seeing Tang Mao about to enter the church, he said, "Why didn't you say that when I was resting just now? I thought you liked it outside." "Okay, I'll remind you next time." After saying that, Tang Mao walked directly into the church and closed the shabby door of the church. Although he was very unhappy, it seemed that there was nothing wrong with what Tang Mao said. After Tang Mao entered, he didn't think about taking advantage. After finding a corner, he began to rest. When he was treating Muningsu before, he released the domain for so long. It was very safe here. Any strange creatures, as long as they existed, would definitely not survive. So, with such a place to rest, why did he go outside? There was no conversation that night. The next morning, Tang Mao was still in a daze when he was called by Munigyo. He was sure that there was no danger coming and looked at Munigyo with some confusion. Before he could ask, he heard Munigyo anxiously say, "Tang Mao, go check on Muningsu, she's frozen." After hearing Munigyo's words, Tang Mao, who was still in a daze, suddenly woke up. Then he stood up and walked to Muningsu's side with Munigyo, only to see that a thick layer of ice had formed on her plump body without knowing when. After seeing this, Tang Mao hurriedly released his domain power. After the domain was released, the ice attribute on Muningsu's body began to fade, and at the same time, all of this power was poured into Tang Mao's body. This sudden change made Tang Mao stop immediately. After all, this was the first time he had encountered such a thing. Before he was sure that these ice attributes would not cause harm to him, he naturally would not absorb too much. He couldn't sacrifice himself to save a beautiful woman. Munigyo, who was standing by, saw the wind around her dissipate after Tang Mao's domain dissipated. She then asked, "Are you okay, Tang Mao?" She had just seen that the ice on Muningsu's body actually rushed into Tang Mao's body. She was extremely worried at that moment. After Tang Mao noticed it himself and confirmed that the ice attribute dissipated directly after entering his body and there was no harm, he said, "I'm fine. Jiao, you go outside first. I think it's because I didn't help her clean up the ice yesterday." Munigyo hesitated for a moment and asked with some doubt, "Are you really okay?" Tang Mao smiled and said, "Although she is very beautiful, do you think I'm the kind of person who would risk my life to save her just because she is beautiful?" Munigyo thought about it and then got up and left the church. Tang Mao continued his treatment. This time, he did not have any intention of resisting the ice attribute power he absorbed. And as this ice attribute continued to pour into his body, he actually clearly felt his own power mixed in it. At the same time, Tang Mao discovered that the killing jade in his body also had a vibration reaction. Before Tang Mao could wonder, he felt that the killing jade suddenly released a very huge energy mixed with the absorbed ice attribute. At the same time as the energy emerged, Tang Mao also saw the illusory shadow of the white tiger. He realized that the killing jade should have a certain amount of energy given by the white tiger. The reason why it suddenly trembled should be because the power of the white tiger and the power of these two fields can help Tang Mao to impact a higher realm. Then, as he thought, this energy rushed into Tang Mao's spiritual world fiercely. After a general understanding, Tang Mao immediately sat cross-legged on the ground with concentration. He would naturally not miss this opportunity to break through the barriers around the impact nebula. The cultivation barriers around the nebula are too thick and too high. Only by giving the entire nebula in the 49 stars stronger stimulation can they break the barriers of the nebula in one go and travel in a wider world. Because of the 5 element, his mental endurance and soul are stronger than other mages, and the energy impact he can withstand is definitely doubled. Opportunities are rare, and they will never come back. The gap between the intermediate and high levels is extremely difficult to cross. If you don't cherish it this time, who knows when the next time will come. P.S. The original book also said that the power of Muninksu's bow is very strong, but now the fragments have not been collected, and the power cannot be fully exerted. But with the help of some, and then mixed with the protagonist's domain power, plus the gift of Chyanshan White Tiger, this is a breakthrough point for breaking through the higher level of ice. It is mainly to give the protagonist and Muninksu a place to get along. If there is no treatment in the future, how can they keep in touch? There may be some stinky brothers who say that the upgrade is too fast. What's the matter? Nonsense. The protagonist will have many element, and I don't plan to awaken the forbidden spell at the end. After the demon element is added to the intermediate level, there will be 3 element awakened in the future. At the high level, I can consider your suggestion to make the whole Yanji a fire element. I originally prepared a set of assassins, but let me make it clear this time. Don't ask Emofan what to do. If you ask, what the hell does it have to do with me? Chapter 96 Breakthrough. Thanks, Mengao Xian Shang Xiangxiapio for 1500 book coins. Thanks to Meng Zishang for 588 book coins. Thanks, Poker Joker for 5000 book coins. Thanks to Book Friend Tale number 192 for 500 book coins. Thanks to the monthly ticket. His ice cultivation can no longer improve, precisely because of the barriers around the ice nebula. No matter how hard you practice, or how you meditate, your magic power will not increase by a single point. At this moment, his 49 stars seemed to have been strengthened, and they kept hitting the entire nebula with their heads. It seems that even they have had enough of this small dwelling, and want to open up a wider space, so the 49 stars have become the vanguard of Tang Mao's attack on the barrier. Just one collision caused cracks in the thick barrier of cultivation. Feeling the 49 stars constantly hitting the barriers outside the nebula is about to expand, and they are so restless that they are about to explode. The small nebula cannot accommodate their wildness at all. The cracks in the cultivation barrier were getting bigger and bigger. Tang Mao held his breath and concentrated his mind. He poured energy into his nebula like a waterfall, and it was bound to break the barrier. Every promotion was accompanied by great mental pain. This splitting headache made him want to give up several times. He even thought about using the Milky Way. However, Tang Mao finally injured it. Because he knew that, if he used the Milky Way at the first high level, it would be even more difficult to break through a new realm in the future. A person's spirit and mind are nothing more than the soul. To make the spirit strong and the mind firm, is to sublimate the soul. This is why it is always painful for a mage to advance, and the transformation of the soul is never an easy thing. He sat cross-legged here, and the power of the domain kept lingering here. The ice layer on Muninksu's body had disappeared. Even her ice crystal bow was forced to emerge. Then, another force rushed into Tang Mao's body. This should be the power of the ice crystal bow. Tang Mao, who was originally gritting his teeth and had a distorted face, was relieved a lot at the moment of this power input. And it was also the sudden help of the ice crystal breaking bow that made Tang Mao's body instantly covered with a thick layer of ice. Nebula turns into a galaxy, 343 stars. The entire ice galaxy flowed in Tang Mao's spiritual world, which was more magnificent than the previous restrained ice nebula. The starlight was connected into one, flowing beautifully in the vast spiritual universe. This powerful ice power emitted an impact and directly awakened Muninksu, who was still in a coma. When she woke up, she looked at the place where she was, surrounded by thick ice, just like the inside of a 1000-year-old iceberg, and was slightly stunned for a moment. Tang Mao slowly opened his eyes, looked at the confused Muninksu, and then asked, "How do you feel?" Muninksu shook her head subconsciously, paused, and then asked with some disappointment, "Is my body really okay?" Although she didn't know what happened, looking at the pile of ice, she could understand that she must have been saved by Tang Mao again. Tang Mao stood up and came to her side, stretched out his hand to pull Muninksu up. Then he said, "Take out your ice crystal bow." Although Muninksu was confused, she nodded and did as she was told. The moment she took out the ice crystal bow, she felt something was wrong. Her bow seemed to have been strengthened again. Moreover, Her domain is also like this. It should not hurt you anymore, but the premise is that you don't use it anymore. Tang Mao thought for a while, and then said, otherwise, with your current strength, every time you use it, your body will freeze. If I can't get there in time, when you can't bear it, you may be frozen forever. So I suggest you not to use it. Moreover, your ice has been infused with the power of my domain, and it is already invincible in the same level. Muningsu naturally felt her change, looking at Tang Mao, and didn't know what to say for a while. Tang Mao waved his hand, dispersing the ice here, and teased, if you feel sorry, just give yourself to me. I'm sorry. Muningsu was a little shy, and then shook her head apologetically. My future is not up to me. I will repay you in other ways. The most important thing is gratitude, not emotion. She still knows her own thoughts. Tang Mao shrugged and didn't care. Now he is in a great mood. Advanced level. The ice system has broken through to the advanced level. At this time, Mu Nigio and Zao Manan, who were outside, also walked in. When such a powerful ice attribute power erupted just now, they wanted to come in and take a look. However, because they knew that Tang Mao was helping Muningsu with her treatment, they did not dare to disturb her. Of course, they could not get in at all. Now that the ice layer had dissipated, the two of them naturally came first. After entering, Zao Manan looked at the two and asked, are you okay? After all, the two of them saved his life, so it was natural for him to care about them. No problem. Very good. Muningsu and Tang Mao responded respectively. Mu Nigio saw Tang Mao's excited face and couldn't help but feel a little confused. However, she didn't mean to ask questions. Since you have recovered, let's leave this damn place. Zao Manan didn't want to stay here for a minute now. After all, it's not bad to go back to school and date some young and beautiful girls. Why have you been living in the wild all the time? Tang Mao originally wanted to gain some experience here. After all, now he has the demon system and the ice system has broken through to a higher level. Isn't it a good time to kill monsters? What's the point of going back? However, if the three of them were to go alone in the wild, it would always make people feel a little worried. After thinking about it, Tang Mao agreed. Then pack up and let's go. Muningsu couldn't help but say, I want to go find Emofan. After all, they were childhood playmates. Although she knew that it was impossible for the two of them. But when the other party's life and death were uncertain and there was danger, she really couldn't leave. Even if she was a member of the same team, she couldn't just give up like that. After Muningsu spoke, Zao Manan and Munigio fell silent. The two of them didn't have a deep friendship with Emofan. Let them take the risk to go to a city full of lizard-headed monsters to find Emofan. They completely refused in their hearts. However, if Muningsu went alone, she always felt that it was a bit dangerous. Seeing that the few people were silent, Muningsu didn't mean to blame them, so she said again, you leave first, I can protect myself. Chapter 97, Besieged. Tang Mao definitely couldn't let Muningsu go alone. Most importantly, he didn't want to give Emofan a chance to improve his impression of her because of Muningsu's going. It would be fine if he didn't feel the soft touch. But since he had already felt it, he naturally couldn't share it with others. Your body hasn't completely stabilized yet. Letting you go alone is like sending you to death. After seeing Muningsu say that, Tang Mao turned around and looked at Munigio and Zao Manan and said, let's go with her. Now he has the demon system as a trump card and has broken through the high level ice system. Although he can't release high level magic, his physical abilities have been greatly improved. The strongest in Jinlin City is nothing more than a wounded giant lizard pseudo-dragon. As long as he is careful, it won't be a problem to go there. Munigio nodded. She naturally couldn't bear to watch Muningsu take risks alone. After all, it was her arrow that saved them in the beginning. Zao Manan was a weak tortoise shell mage, and he had no output. Even if there were no commander level monsters outside, there must be many general level monsters. It would be fine if he encountered a weaker monster, but if there were more monsters or they were stronger, wouldn't he be dead? Therefore, after confirming that the three output monsters had no intention of leaving, he naturally had no temper to leave. After the four of them simply packed up, they headed back to Jinlin City. As for whether they could find Emofan, they could only leave it to fate. Tang Mao thought that he would be fine. Although his strength was much worse than that of the original work, he was a man with his own halo after all. How could he be dead so easily? After returning to the deserted city again, the four of them were extremely careful in their whereabouts and kept patrolling around. They wanted to see if they could find Emofan. Along the way, they also killed many giant lizard skull monsters, and of course they also encountered many giant dead lizards. But almost all of them were easily killed by Tang Mao. Muningsu looked at Tang Mao in shock. They were all intermediate level magic, but Tang Mao could easily kill a general level giant lizard at will. After killing a few more, Muningsu wiped the sweat from her forehead and asked in confusion, Tang Mao, has your ice magic become stronger again? Yes. Tang Mao nodded, but did not tell them that his ice magic had reached an advanced level. It's not that he didn't trust these people, but everyone has some little secrets, and the magic he had been using was only elementary and intermediate. Munigio took a breath and said, it's not a good idea to keep looking like this. Once our magic power is exhausted, we will be dead. Zhao Manan also said, we have been looking for an entire afternoon, and there are battles from time to time. If Emofan is still in Jinlin City, wouldn't he be able to find us? Tang Mao looked at Muningsu and said, what do you think? Muningsu was silent for a moment, and then said, then let's leave. Everyone has done their best. She naturally couldn't ask them to go back and look for him again. Moreover, being able to look for Emofan for an entire afternoon was already a great effort. As for whether Emofan left safely or was killed, it all depended on his luck. After Muningsu made the decision, Tang Mao called out Zhao Bei. Then he said, come up, let's leave here. Before coming in, Tang Mao thought that the boy should have already run away. After all, this time there was no Lunan to threaten him with hostages, so it would not be difficult for him to escape. The reason why they agreed to come in was just to be on the safe side, and also to spawn more monsters. Just as they got on Xiao Bay and ran wildly towards the outside of the deserted city, they saw dense lizard-headed giant monsters suddenly rushing out from all directions. The number was almost 1,000. At the same time, the huge body of the giant lizard pseudo-dragon fell from the building. The appearance of the giant lizard pseudo-dragon made Muningsu and the other two dumbfounded, especially when they saw some giant dead lizards among the dense lizard-headed giant monsters. Zhao Manan complained directly, damn. Emofan didn't find it. How did he attract this giant lizard pseudo-dragon? It's over. It's over this time. It's really over. None of the three paid any attention to Zhao Manan, who was like a grudge. Muningsu looked at Tang Mao and others with apology. After all, if she hadn't come to find Emofan, they wouldn't have been besieged. Munigio leaned against Tang Mao in fear and said in despair, are we going to die? Tang Mao did not mean to blame Muningsu. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, the giant lizard pseudo-dragon should have sensed his breath and came to seek revenge. Then he reached out and patted Munigio's soft shoulder to comfort her. It's okay, I'm here. This time, when facing the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, the remaining sense of pressure had long dissipated. Although his magic power was also consumed a lot, he was not panicked at all. After comforting Munigio, Tang Mao summoned the snow girl. After merging with the snow girl, Tang Mao turned around and said, I will lead the way, and then deal with the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. Let Xiao Bei lead you to kill. Muningsu hurriedly said, what about you? Tang Mao said that he was fine and replied, don't worry, I can escape the first time, so I can escape the second time. In fact, he wanted to say that it was not certain who would escape this time. But Tang Mao didn't want to use the demon system if he could avoid it. So, if he could retreat directly, he didn't want to fight to the death. Brother, even if you can stop the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, this... Zhao Manan looked like he wanted to cry, but had no tears, pointing at the countless giant lizard-headed monsters in front of him, not confident that he could survive. He simply chose to ignore Zhao Manan, this stupid dog. Then, he jumped up and floated in the air, and then the lightning star map was drawn. Zixio. Pali. Yaksha. The angry thunder in Tang Mao's hand danced wildly around, and the electric arc in the shape of a wild python spread around the densely packed giant lizard-headed monsters in front of him. In the minefield, the electric arcs will be transmitted to each other, and then there will be a zla sound, followed by a boom of thunder. Then hundreds of giant lizard-headed monsters were directly killed here. Although those warlord-level giant lizards of various attributes did not die in the scattered thunder, they were killed instantly by Tangmiro's purple sky domain. They had the same fate as those servant-level giant lizard skull monsters. Normally, if a magician fights in a free-range battle, it is possible to destroy more than 10 times the number of monsters, but if they are surrounded by such a large group, they will definitely die. But Tangmiro likes this kind of monsters gathered together, because in this case, he can use all his strength to kill them, which reduces consumption a lot compared to scattered ones. Chapter 98, Fighting Giant Lizard Pseudo Dragon. Thanks, Zaka received 10,000 rewards, thanks to the big guys. Thanks to the book friend with the last number 832 for awarding 666 book coins. Thanks to the old bookworm in Singapore for awarding 1,500 book coins. Thanks to Shiji for awarding 500 book coins. Thanks to the monthly tickets from the old friends. Although it was not the first time that Tangmiro killed monsters in 1 second, it was still enough to surprise them that hundreds of monsters were killed in one blow. Space Rhythm. Just after solving one vote, Tangmiro took action again. Under the compression of space, when a group of giant dead lizards wanted to disperse, Tangmiro controlled them in time. After all, there were so many general level monsters blocking the way, and they had no chance to rush out. Zixio. Thunderbolt. Wuan Wu. This time, the Thunderbolt was several times stronger than the last time. After all, this was the 3rd level Thunderbolt of the intermediate level. Or Thunderbolt, like a train passing through the aisle, fell from the air to the ground, and then pulled all the way to split a hole of nearly 100 meters. This time, a large number of lizard-headed giant demons and dead giant lizards died. Go. Tangmiro shouted hurriedly, after seeing a hole torn open. Xiaobe immediately understood, and spread his forelegs, taking the 2 mistresses and a burden with him and rushed out. Although a hole was torn open by the Thunderbolt, the monsters next to it were still intact, because it was mainly struck vertically. Xiaobe's speed was not very fast, so when he rushed out, Muningsu and Munigio also took action. As for Zao Manian, although he was complaining, his hands were not idle. He used defensive magic and magic tools one by one to ensure the safety of the 2 women and 1 beast. Although Tangmiro wanted to help, the giant lizard pseudo dragon did not give him any chance. Roar. The giant lizard pseudo dragon looked down at Tangmiro from a height, and the roars it made continued to come down, deafening, and even the nearby buildings began to shake. Then the giant lizard pseudo dragon glided down from a height. Its body was able to cast a huge shadow, and those abandoned buildings were like building blocks, and they collapsed with a bang when it hit them casually. Originally, this kind of commander level demon would not be the first to attack. After all, it would consume what it could first. However, the giant lizard pseudo dragon's head still had the mark left by Tangmiro's lightning. This is a great shame. Last time it fled, it only sensed a more terrifying aura, but this time there was no such terrifying aura, but only Tangmiro, so it naturally wanted revenge. 0 degree. Tangmiro, who had already reached a high level, was naturally not afraid, and the ice attribute in his hand continued to gather. Ice cone. With the extreme cold power of the snow girl and Tangmiro's absolute zero, one crystal spear after another emerged. Then, in an instant, all of them flew towards the giant lizard pseudo dragon that was rushing towards them. Bang, bang, bang. Although the giant lizard pseudo dragon spit out sound waves and flapped its wings to shatter a lot of things, but there were still a lot of ice spears that hit its huge body. However, although the ice spears seemed to be extremely sharp, they did not cause any actual damage to the giant lizard pseudo dragon. At the moment of impact, it was instantly shattered. But this also made the giant lizard pseudo dragon extremely angry. Although its skin was not scratched, it clearly felt the pain of freezing on its skin. Roar. The giant lizard pseudo dragon didn't care, and its huge fangs bit down directly at Tangmiro. The bite of the giant lizard pseudo dragon is not just the width of its mouth. When it opened its mouth wide, a black hole that kept sinking appeared in the area of 100 meters. The hole swallowed the roads, buildings, and those slow-witted giant lizard-headed monsters together. Tangmao was in the center of this hole, and the evil teeth of this giant lizard pseudo-dragon were also visible around him. Obviously, the black hole is the esophagus of the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. It wants to eat all of this area into its stomach in one breath. Ice crystal defense. This huge suction force is indeed terrible, but Tangmao's current ice crystal wall is also unusually strong, and the suction force does not cause any actual damage to him. Purple sky domain. With the wall to resist, Tangmao quickly depicted magic, and thunder was instantly all over his body. Thunderbolt. Wondering. The violent thunder condensed in his hands, and Tangmao did not blast it directly, but kept accumulating power. After all, this is the esophagus of the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, so it will be full, and its esophagus and stomach will be blown up at once. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon saw that Tangmao had no intention of being sucked in. Seeing that Tangmao's thunder was constantly condensing, he hurriedly wanted to retract his esophagus, but Tangmao had already thrown the thunder in. Boom boom. After a thunderous sound, the giant lizard pseudo-dragon's belly, which was originally huge, was suddenly stretched open. It was obvious that the thunder exploded in its belly, although it was only a mid-level thunderbolt. With the bonus of Tangmao's domain, this blow exploded in the stomach again. It was enough to make it so painful that it couldn't breathe. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon was in extreme pain. It opened its throat to spit out the thunder, but Tangmao suddenly flew into the air. Ice lock. Then, he released the third level magic of the mid-level ice system. Ice locks emerged one by one, and then condensed together, turning into a python condensed from ice attribute energy for more than 10 meters, rushing straight towards the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. At the moment when the python of ice attribute energy rushed up, it was like a rope, directly tying up its huge body. The giant lizard pseudo-dragon wanted to break free, but when the python tied it up, its body had already begun to freeze. Roar. Seeing the giant lizard pseudo-dragon with its mouth tied up, it wanted to roar and break free after falling to the ground, and kept making low roars. The giant lizards and giant dead lizards on the entire main road saw their leader in such a mess, and they made sharp cries. They were not afraid of death at all, and gathered like a tide to the open space under Tangmao's feet. Protected the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, and the giant dead lizards of various attributes opened their mouths and sprayed elemental attacks. Boom. Boom. Fortunately, the snow girl has now reached the advanced stage, otherwise, he might not be able to escape this wave of bombing. However, with the protection of this group of lizards and giant dead lizards, Tangmao's opportunity to take advantage of his illness to kill him was lost in vain. Moreover, Mu Nigio and the others were not doing well, and Xiaobei was already injured at this time. As for the three of them, they seemed to be in a bit of a mess, watching the people surrounded, and their summoned beasts being blocked and bullied. Here, the giant lizard skull monsters and giant dead lizards kept rushing over, and he had no chance to kill the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. The most important thing was that once the magic power was exhausted and he fell to the ground, he would really have no way out. Then Tangmao turned around and flew quickly to the place where the three of them were. P.S. Please vote for me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 99 Breakout. Mu Ningsu, Mu Nigio and Zao Manan were in a terrible situation. Who could have thought that after the encirclement was broken, there would be so many giant lizard-headed monsters rushing in continuously? Fortunately, Xiaobei was very powerful, otherwise, if they were just 3 humans, they would have already become food for the monsters by now, right? I have no more magic power. I have none either. Zao Manan and Munigio, one lying on Xiaobei's body and the other kneeling here, both of them had reached their limit. They had used their magic tools, and looking at the nearly hundreds of giant lizard-headed monsters in front of them, their eyes were full of despair. Not only did they run out of magic power, Xiaobei was also almost at his limit, and Muningsu also had little magic power left. It can be said that they were about to lose their resistance. Muningsu looked back at the two of them and sighed. I'm sorry that I hurt you. Munugio didn't say anything, and Zaomanan didn't complain either, because what was the point of complaining at this moment? Moreover, to put it bluntly, if it weren't for Tangmao and Muningsu, they would have been dead long ago. First, they encountered the giant lizard pseudo-dragon as soon as they arrived, and then they encountered the devil military commander Lunan. It can be said that this experience is simply like sending themselves to death. Seeing that the two were silent, Muningsu didn't say anything. Now even if she wanted to shoot the bow desperately to open a way for them to escape, she couldn't do it. Zaomanan took a breath and said in a voice that was neither sad nor happy, the day we first arrived here, we actually had no chance of survival. Now we have lived for 2 more days, which is already very good. Roar at this time, Xiaobei roared to the sky. The 3 people thought that Xiaobei couldn't hold on, and their hearts were chilled. Boom boom. Just when the 3 people were desperate and ready to cook food, they heard a burst of thunder. Hearing the sound, the 3 people were stunned. This sudden thunder explosion was naturally not released by the demon. After all, the giant death lizard did not have the thunder attribute. At that moment, they all looked up at the same time, only to see that Tangmao, who was supposed to be fighting with the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, had come to their sky without knowing when. The giant lizards in front of them, under the bombardment of thunderbolt, all lay on the ground. Before the 3 of them were happy, Xiaobei accelerated suddenly and took them outside. Tangmao continued to open the way for them. Without the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, these giant lizards were like headless flies. Under the bombardment of thunderbolt, some died and some escaped. In a few breaths, the situation suddenly reversed. After Tangmao blasted away, he jumped on Xiaobei at the same time. Looking at Xiaobei, who was originally covered in white hair, it had turned red at this time. Tangmao stroked its hair and said, after returning, I will find a way to help you advance. Xiaobei heard the voice and growled a few times to express his response. Obviously, hearing Tangmao's reward, Xiaobei felt that this little injury was nothing in an instant. Once it is promoted to the command level, it can also establish a tribe in its world. It was almost powerless, but it ran wildly in an instant. Of course, this was not only because of its mental persistence, but also because of the magic energy Tangmao input into it. After running all the way out of the giant lizard group, Tangmao breathed a sigh of relief and sat down. Looking back at the 3 people, he asked, are you okay? Tangmao. Munigio was excited, as if she had survived a disaster, and threw herself into his arms. It's okay, it's okay. Tangmao patted Munugio's soft back and comforted her. It's okay now, Gio, didn't I say, I'm here? Yeah. Munigio nodded in response with a little feeling of crying with joy. This feeling of surviving a disaster is really good. No wonder she is so excited. In fact, not only Munugio, but also Muningsu and Zaomanan were also extremely excited. Who wants to die when they can live? After Munugio was excited, she also felt something was wrong. Especially the hand behind her back, which had been caressing. Then Munugio immediately pushed Tangmao away and glared at him, expressing her dissatisfaction. However, neither Muningsu nor Zaomanan noticed. They were both glad that they were not dead. It was not until the 4 of them returned to the church that the other 3 were completely relieved. Tangmao's consumption was not too great, and he did not expect that it would be so easy to deal with the giant lizard pseudo-dragon. Of course, it was mainly because the giant lizard pseudo-dragon was arrogant and directly swallowed one of his destructive thunder magic. You know, the explosive power of his thunder magic is equivalent to the power of a high-level thunder magic. If not, it would not be so easy to be defeated by Tangmao. After the 3 learned that Tangmao almost killed the giant lizard pseudo-dragon, they all cursed in their hearts. Pervert. Munigio sighed. If it weren't for us dragging it down, maybe you could have killed it. Tangmao shook his head and said, no chance. There are too many giant lizards. If it weren't for the snow girl's combined power to fly, even I would have been killed by the number of monsters. Without the magic of destroying the world, it is really difficult to deal with thousands of monsters. Of course, it is also fortunate that he has more magic systems and can release magic in turn. Otherwise, even if the skills of the two intermediate systems are lethal, facing more than 100, there is no doubt that they will turn around and run away. Okay, you should have a good rest to recover your magic power. Zeomanan will take over in the second half of the night. The three nodded at the same time. This place is considered safe. After leaving Jinlin City, there was no movement last night, and there will naturally be no problem today. However, after all, it is in the wild, and someone still needs to keep watch. Naturally, the two girls can't come for this kind of thing, and Zeomanan has no complaints. In other words, as long as he doesn't take him to Jinlin City, everything will be fine. After Tangmiro left the church, he began to check today's gains. Although it was a bit thrilling today, it also had its benefits. 3 slave level spirits, and 1 general level spirit. As for the remaining broken pieces, they directly strengthened the lightning star to 40. As long as 9 more stars are strengthened, his intermediate lightning magic can reach the 4th level in the future. With the addition of a purple thunder, even the power of the Yaksha can be almost the same as the power of the high level lightning magic. And the 3rd level wild dance can almost be said to surpass the 1st level high level magic. Chapter 100, The Thunder Zone brought by promotion. Thanks, Bookfriend040 gave 2000 book coins. Thanks to Soul of Heart for giving 588 book coins. Thanks to the monthly ticket. After strengthening the stars, Tangmiro began to connect the stars to accumulate constellations. Controlling the stars is not more difficult than practicing. But with Tangmiro's current mental strength, he is much faster than others. He has just broken through the high level, and he can already control 60 stars. Now, except for the ice system, his other systems have been perfected in the middle level. Even if he wants to practice, it is useless. Therefore, controlling the stars has become the only thing he has to do now. The first half of the night passed quickly. After Zeomanan came out to take over, Tangmiro did not choose to rest after returning to the church. Instead, he took out the galaxy vein. Now that the first system has been broken through, using the galaxy vein to break through the second system is naturally a stable success. The second high level system to break through is naturally the thunder system. There is no other reason. After the breakthrough of the ice system, Tangmiro found that his domain power has been greatly improved. It can be said that the ice element is no longer a soul seed now. Instead, it has been promoted to the sub-heavenly species. Since the soul seeds of the ice element can be evolved as the level increases, then the thunder element can naturally be evolved as well. After all, these two fields are awakened. After the ice element was promoted to the sub-heavenly species, Tangmiro's defensive skills were enhanced again. So what will the thunder element get if it is promoted? Maybe the power of thunder magic will be more powerful, or maybe he will get more powerful skills. In short, no matter what it is, it will definitely not let him down. His thunder element has long been in a perfect state. With the breakthrough of the ice element, the thunder element has become even more restless. With the addition of a galaxy vein, it is not difficult to break through. Tangmiro did what he said, and quietly began to retreat. As for Munugio and Muningsu, the two women were replenishing sleep to restore magic because of great consumption. I don't know what Tangmiro is doing. In fact, Zeomanan also wanted to have a good rest for a night, but Tangmiro is the main force. Outside this deserted city, although he avoided a large number of giant lizard tribes, but there are still many other kinds of demons. So, he can recover halfway, but Tangmiro must recover completely, because only in this way can they return to the city safely. This night was as quiet and peaceful as yesterday, and no demons came here. The next day, when it was almost dawn, Zeomanan, who was yawning, was about to go into the church to rest for a while and let the goddesses take over, when he suddenly felt a strong lightning attribute burst out from the church. When he felt this powerful thunder, Zeomanan lost his sleepiness instantly and rushed in a hurry. After he went in, he saw that the two sleeping beauties had woken up at this time. However, looking at their confused faces, they obviously didn't know what happened. After the three of them looked at each other for a moment, Munigio said, "Where is Tangmiro?" Muningsu looked around and saw the ice wall over there. After the lightning flashed, she said to the two people, "Where is it?" Hearing this, the two looked over at the same time. At the same time, the ice wall was instantly shattered by the thunder around Tang Mao. Is he advancing to a higher level? Seeing the powerful thunder constantly destroying, Muningsu said dumbfoundedly. Damn. Is this pervert still a human? Zhao Manan said with a twitch in his mouth. You know, he is only at the second level of the intermediate level now, but he didn't expect that Tang Mao has already started to advance to a higher level? No, let's go out first. Although Munigyo was also shocked, she saw that the thunder had begun to burst out continuously, and hurriedly reminded the two. Then, the three of them ran out of the church at the same time, and at the same time, the roof of the church was shattered by thunder. The falling boulders did not hurt Tang Mao at all. At the moment they fell, they were chopped into pieces by the thunder around him. Boom boom at the same time, the sky above the church was covered with dark clouds and thunder rolled in. Zzz. At this time, a thunderbolt suddenly descended, heading towards the three people. Not good, defend quickly. After Muningsu exclaimed, Zhao Manan drew a star map in time. The light type defensive shield emerged. Pa. But the thunderbolt that descended was not giving him face at all, and it shattered his defense with one strike. Fortunately, Munigyo used the defensive magic tool in time to block the bombardment of thunder. After Munigyo blocked it, she was also a little dumbfounded, and then said, quick, let's leave this area first. Zhao Manan used a defensive magic, and then her shield magic tool barely blocked the thunderbolt, which was really a bit scary. If they continued to stay here, the three of them would probably be chopped into ashes. Boom boom. After the three ran out of the area covered with dark clouds, the moment they looked back, they found that the nearby trees had all turned into ashes. And the church, of course, was not spared, and it also became a pile of ruins. Even if this guy has advanced to a high level, he shouldn't be so fierce, right? Zhao Manan bent down and supported his knees, breathlessly saying, it's not just because of his advancement, the lightning is scattered, because of his domain. Muningsu supported Munigyo and said as she looked at the church covered with thunder. After all, she was also a woman with a soul seed domain, so she knew a little bit. It was just that she didn't expect Tang Mao's domain to be so strong. When they ran over just now, it wasn't just Zhao Manan who was in a bad state. Muningsu and Munigyo were also not in a good state. It's not that she hadn't seen Tang Mao's thunder domain before, but she hadn't felt it before. And just now, the three of them felt it deeply. Fortunately, Zhao Manan's tortoise shell is well deserved. Otherwise, even if the two beautiful ladies and Zhao Manan could come out alive now, I'm afraid they would be covered in dirt, and might even be injured. Munigyo looked at the church covered with thunder and asked, will Tang Mao be okay? He should be okay. After all, it was his own thunder. Muningsu said uncertainly. Her domain was very harmful to her body. Although it was not as serious as it was at the beginning after the power of Tang Mao's domain was injected, it still caused her some damage. Especially when the magic power was about to be exhausted, the damage made her extremely painful. This was also the reason why she still had magic power yesterday, but did not take action. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.